Everybody. We're going to be doing our Amazon Lily roundtable, and thanks all for being here. We're going to jump into it.
Something that's being questioned and having to be performed,
Hello,
and it just
all.
fucking
Mhm.
sucks.
You're on
Right.
Which is
stream
why
now.
I do
Hey,
the most
hi, you're on
revolutionary
stream
thing of
now.
all and refuse to.
Hello. Okay.
Hi.
Yeah,
We're
yeah.
on
Hey,
stream.
Prime.
Yeah, just so you know, you're on stream. So I'm going to move you to the private room, and we'll get started from there.
Sounds
Cool.
good, boss.
One, two, three. Okay. I think we're only waiting for one other person. But you can talk about anything you want. Just want to let you know you're on stream.
Talking about gender standards that are inflicted.
I am setting my stream up.
I'm Butch, and I tell that to anyone who asks, like, why don't you, try to perform femininity? It's like, no, I'm just a butch trans woman. Like, I'm not gonna adhere to your dumb standards because I think they're dumb and they're not my.
Or it's like, how about I just
so
like
fuck
be
off.
me and you can worry about your own
That
shit.
reminds me of something. I
Exactly.
don't know who it was, but someone was telling me recently about like that the whole trans bathroom thing, like that's actually been going on for a very long time for like butch cis women, right? But
Yes.
they've actually
Yeah.
they've been gatekept from the women's bathrooms tons of times, right? And stuff. So it was something that like you never hear TERFs talking about, right? That's something
It's
they
so
should care about.
Yeah, it's so weird that the
That's
bathrooms
dumb.
too were like their battleground or what they deemed. I'm like, I don't know, maybe I just have lived a privileged life, but like the only thing I worry about in a women's bathroom is just looking and being like, damn, that line's long. I'm
Mhm.
not like, wonder what
that's the
people's
thing, right?
genitalia
It's
looks
like-
like. It's like, no.
It's a pretty key piece of infrastructure for like a public space. So if you can make sure they can never be in bathrooms, you can pretty much make sure they can never be in public spaces for too long.
I
Exactly.
didn't think of that. Holy shit,
Mhm.
yeah.
Well, yeah, that's
That's what-
why women fighting for women's bathrooms originally was about women's rights, right?
Mhm.
Like because otherwise they just weren't able.
right.
Like people forget, like women just weren't even allowed to be out in public in general because, like, yeah, they had nowhere to go, like when they need to go to the bathroom.
And it was that one, it was the movie, Catherine, I forget her last name, but she was one of the mathematicians at NASA. And they made that movie about her hidden figures and talked about how
Yeah.
at NASA they didn't have, it took her so long to go to the bathroom every day because she had to go to another building across campus
Mhm.
because they didn't have any women's bathroom in the building where she worked.
Imagine having to commute to piss.
Oh
Yeah,
my
that was
God.
true. Well, that was true even at my college situation, right? Is you'd have to go like 3 buildings over to get to like a any bathrooms basically. But that's just
Jeez.
because it was designed shittily.
All of our dorm bathrooms in college were co-ed, and like people were like so freaked out about it when you first moved in, but then you just get used to it and it's like, oh, it
Mhm.
doesn't
Guess
matter.
what? We all have gender neutral bathrooms in our homes. So
Right.
Yeah.
So what
Yeah,
I
Like,
just
yeah,
want
there's a
I just
little-
want private bathrooms in general. Like I
Yes.
used to
Ugh.
always lie to try to get access to like the staff bathroom in a place or something where they
Yeah.
have like that single bathroom. Cause it's like it doesn't matter. Like it's awkward as shit. Like with other people being able to see you pee, no matter what their gender is.
Yeah. Or like if I just
Absolutely.
there's no way to not make it awkward when you're like you're pooping and people
Yep.
come in and you're just like, well,
So
sorry, not
so
sorry.
when I
these
was
are the sounds of my butthole. I hope you don't mind.
Right.
yeah, just
It's like I'm not
absolutely
going to
ripping.
apologize.
But when I was first transitioning, because I would get onto my college's campus super early in the morning before everyone was there, I essentially like would socially condition myself because there was absolutely no one else on campus at like 5 a.m. So I could like go into the women's restroom, get myself socially used to being in that space, and over time sort of condition myself to being like, no, dude, you're not like some weirdo for doing this.
For
That
using
breaks
facilities.
my heart that so many
Oh,
trans
it's-
women feel like that. Like
Yeah.
yeah.
Same
It's
here.
not
It
great,
literally
but
makes me so sad.
It's definitely weird to like So I came out like at work, like I transitioned at work, and it was definitely weird to be like, yeah. So the reason I look this feminine is because I've been on hormones for a year, and still have people be like, but are you a real woman? Should you really be in here? And then like at other places, like I get weird looks. Like if I used the like men's restroom, people would be like, "What the fuck are you doing in here?"
Jeez.
Yeah.
But
I
it
just,
is
I
true
will
that, like,
never
butch
understand
women-
that question.
Yeah.
Are you
But-
a real woman? It's like,
I don't know, but
Yeah, what does
Like-
that even mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
You're just doing this to creep on people. Ah, yes, thank you, sir. I would love to get like an invasive injection into my hip every 2 weeks for the rest of my life, just so I can creep on women. That's you caught
Aw.
me. That's
Yeah,
the
like to
entire
me,
plan.
like a real,
It's
like to
good
me, like a
dedication.
real,
You gotta admire it.
to me, like a real woman is like people that exist in meat space, and like fake women are like, I don't know, like Jessica Rabbit or like, you know, The Little Mermaid. Like those are fake women. They're imaginary women, but otherwise everyone else is real women.
yeah, I'm like, it's just ridiculous. And like, I'm sorry that anyone trans has ever had to like justify their like who they are to people who like clearly don't give a fuck either way.
Exactly.
And are just like,
next.
yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Hmm.
Exactly, person in chat. We're starting at the bottom, so the only place we
Right.
can go is up
Go
from
up.
here. That's
Starting from
the
the bottom.
that's the secret to all good entertainment, right? Is you always start with the low expectation, so that as you're rising tension, you know, you can get
Mhm.
better and better results, right? You
That's
don't
right.
you don't start Game of Thrones with a dragon attack on the capital city, right? You build to that point.
But maybe they.
Okay, I'm still
should-
traumatized by that final episode. So
I'll
I don't know.
say.
That
We
should have been
all
a
are.
trigger warning.
I never watched Game of Thrones, so can't relate.
alright.
Oh,
Good choice.
good
I mean-
choice.
Alright.
Avoid.
Yeah.
Pastel, I really love your outfit. Sorry.
Thank you.
Same here. I was thinking like
Mhm.
Pastel's outfit is fucking on point tonight.
I love that
Mm.
color. It looks so cute on you.
Same here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Gosh, guys, what about my outfit? Like, what the heck?
I love your purple eyes.
I love
Kara
your logo.
Supernova, I'm obsessed with your hair. Like truly.
Thank you. I mean,
Barbie hair.
I picked it myself.
So
I want to know what. Oh,
Yeah, so let's get started. We have one other person coming, but they'll be here soon, hopefully. So we'll just jump into it. Thank you all for being here. To my audience, thanks for stopping by. This is Amazon Only Roundtable. We have it Tuesdays, 8 p.m. Eastern. We have a wonderful group of individuals here. So we'll start by introducing them. First, we'll go with Alice. After all, Alice, thank you for coming back for yet another week. How are you doing today?
I am doing pretty well. The topics are spicy this week, kind of. Not really. I think we're all going to agree, but we'll see. And past that, pretty good. Streaming on Twitch. Go visit Calliopean Club. What else did I miss? I think that's about it. Thanks for having me back again.
Okay, absolutely. Next, Dr. K. Dr. K, thanks for being here. My audience will be very familiar with you. You are always on our open panels, and we very much appreciate having you there. How are you doing
Yeah,
today?
your audience loves me. Don't worry. Hi, I'm Dr. K. I'm a political scientist, but you know, most of my actual content is non-political. It's mostly D&D stuff. I come onto primes and I, you know, do the occasional bit of politicking, just as a means to like vent my collective frustration at my own field's incompetence. My channel is The Amazing Dr. K. I always stream on Sunday. You can check me on IPA's channel on Monday, I think. Yeah, that's about it for me. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Next, we have Ark. Ark, thank you for coming back. We had you here the other day. You stopped by the open panel. We had a lot of fun with you. And here you are for Amazon Only. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. It's my day off. Glad I get to be here. Super enjoyed being on the open panel. Love watching the show. I listen to a lot at work, so you know, you're in my head a lot, rent free. But I have streamed in the past. I have a YouTube channel. I do a lot of gaming content. I'm ARK TK421. I really enjoy discussions and learning. I'm not the brightest crayon in the box, but I love to learn and offer my opinions.
Thanks so much. Next, we have Maddie. Maddie, you're back. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate you coming through once again here on this panel. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Yeah, hi, I'm Maddie, also known as Maddie Cakes _, and I stream a lot about politics. Sometimes I do party games and other things, and just recap news, world events. My background academically is economics, so I tend to nerd out over that. But in real life, I'm a progressive organizer activist as well as a digital marketing professional. So yeah, I pretty much just stream about whatever I want to. And I am so happy to be back on Prime's channel.
Okay, thanks so much. Next, we have Pastel. Pastel, how are you doing today? Pastel, the MVP of last panel, changing literally everyone's minds. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Yeah, I'm Pastel Dallas, or you can call me Abigail. I stream basically every day other than Wednesday and sometimes Thursday at just like 8 p.m. EST. It's at the twitch.tv/Pastel Dallas. Now my academic major is actually just mechanical engineering, so I'm a complete fraud. I'm not doing anything with politics. However, that might be changing soon. I might just change my major. Math, listen,
Don't
I
do
love
it.
physics. I love physics. Listen,
Don't do
everyone.
it.
I hate math though. Calculus? Why? Why is there a calculus 3? Why? Like, oh, static engineering, like A cross B, momentum, like why does that exist? No one needs that.
You don't love momentum?
No. Torque, so annoying. I hate everything. I had a really bad engineering class today, okay? I'm gonna be venting
Okay.
about engineering.
Oh,
I do IRL organization as well in my district. Really important for you to vote in your local elections. Everyone should get out there, at least talk about it, learn who your local
yeah,
politicians are. Yeah, that's about all.
good
Okay,
shit.
thanks so much. Finally, we have Terra Supernova. Thanks for coming back. We haven't had you here in a while. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, it's been a while. I'm happy to be back though. Happy that you're still doing this. I remember back when the time when you didn't talk when I would come on, and that was completely different experience. But yeah, I'm Terra Supernova _. I stream Monday, Thursday, Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern. I stream politics and politics adjacent topics. I also have some expensive pieces of paper, but that's not really important or relevant right now. Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah. Iris, I didn't forget about you. I did. I promise I didn't forget. I always save my co-host for last.
Oh shit.
Co-host Eris, thank you for being so kind as to be here and help us put this all together, Eris. You do a lot of work for this channel, and I always want to make sure you're appreciated and recognized here. So thank you, Eris. How are you doing?
I'm quite good. Thanks for the kind word. So yeah, I actually had a really hard time falling asleep last night after that whole monarchist debate. Like that was a blast. But I'm a history grad student. I've got a master's in history, and I'm in my final year as a PhD candidate. I love bringing a historical perspective to modern issues, but I also don't know a ton of shit as well. And I just love learning. I love ideas, even if they seem completely crazy, and just dealing with them in a charitable and open-minded way, because that's just fun for me. You should. I stream as well, so you should follow me on Twitch. It's Eris on Discord. And I also run Calliopean Club, which is an academic club kind of based in those ideas I told you I love. We also self-identify as snowflakes, so it's a very kind place, you know. So yeah, thanks for having me here, Prime.
Sure. Okay. So we'll get started. Hopefully we get our last person in here soon.
Oh, can I just say
there they
real
are.
quick?
Yeah.
Calliopean Club helped me with my engineering class, so they're great.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
That's
and
really
for
that's really
us.
great to hear.
Hey, Stardust, you there?
Hey,
Hey.
how's it going?
Fine. You have a target on your face.
Oh, my camera. Sorry.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
adjusting. It'll go away in a second.
Oh man, Luke, you've turned out your targeting computer. Look out! All right, that terrible bit. The bit sucked.
Yeah, but Stardust, thank you for coming back. You were also here yesterday, and it was quite an event that you
Oh yeah.
jumped in on. So
Yeah,
thank
very
you
much.
for coming back after all of that. um, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm all right. Okay, so we're just getting started now. So I saw in our group DM that we share that people seem to have trouble or have a problem with the first topic, the one in dealing China and homosexuality. Um, do you all want to cover that, or you can skip it? I mean, we have three others, so that's why we have a bonus topic. Just for these types
Yeah,
of
I totally don't
situations.
mind skipping it.
You want to
I was
skip
gonna
it?
say,
We're all
I
gonna
think
have
the
the same
three.
I love the
opinions.
bonus topics. I'd love to
Me
get to it.
too. I think that the
Mhm.
3 other topics are way more interesting and less circle jerky.
Okay.
Yeah, avoid
Yeah.
sensationalist garbage every day.
Okie doke. All right. So we'll move on, and why don't we start with topic 3, and then we'll decide what'll be the next one after that. But we'll start with topic 3. Okay. Yesterday, many organizations held events or ran campaigns to mark International Women's Day. How do the activities and sentiments shared on International Women's Day present the status of women globally? What does societal engagement with IWD celebrations tell us about how gender inequality is understood? So yeah, I'll do in minute-long introductions, and then we'll jump right into it. So Alice.
You always do this. You switch around which topic is first.
I do it all the time. Yeah, we do it all the time here.
I have to remember that. Okay, so I think this one's going to be interesting. I kind of am looking more forward to hearing everybody else's. I think that Burger King attempting like that blew my mind when I saw that tweet of like women belong in the kitchen, and then they follow it up. I'm like, that's not a very well planned social, campaign. I think the fact that that's such a like a prolific thing, like on the internet, is kind of interesting. I think it's pretty clear in general that women are still fighting and are going to continue fighting. Past that, I'm kind of looking forward to hearing from everybody else here. So
Okay, let's go to we'll go to Dr. K. What do you think?
It's a great way to say, limit your activism and your awareness to women's issues to only one day a year instead of this sort of being an ongoing thing that needs to be paid attention to. It's really cool that a lot of like awareness and stuff is limited like that. They limit Black History Month to only a month of the year. They LGBT month just June, right? Like just stay asleep. Don't be actively proactive in these things all year round. You don't have to. Don't worry. Just this one day, right? And you'll feel good, and you can not pay attention to it again. Another fun thing about it is how, like with many things, corporations see this as a great opportunity to do woke advertising and essentially try to frame liberation as something that can be bought and sold. And it's just the general like fucking slacktivism garbage bullshit. It's great that there's awareness being brought to these things, but I think that that awareness should be all year long, not just a single day out of the year, or framed as something that you only need to pay attention to one day out of the year.
Thanks so much, Ark.
Yeah, I think the woman, the Burger King tweet was. I get what they were trying to do, like turn a trope on its head. It just went way, way awry because I don't think that we're separate enough from the suffrage of women to turn a trope like that on its head. Because there are still literally
I'm not
people
sure if
out there.
everyone knows what the Burger King ad is. We should actually state exactly.
Just some stupid bullshit.
Yeah, but we actually, if people don't know what it is, then they're not gonna.
Yeah, we need to contextualize.
Yeah.
Sure. So I'll just say, Burger King tweeted out on International Women's Day, "Women belong in the kitchen." They were doing this in order to support a scholarship program that they're doing in order to have more women go into the culinary field, to have more women chefs. which is a good thing to do, right? Like expand women in the culinary field. That's great. But when you tweet it like that in order to, I think that they were trying to sensationalize and get eyes on them. I don't think that they were dumb and like knowing that like if they tweeted a statement like this, there's going to be some backlash. And I think that it's gross to co-opt such a harmful trope to get clicks and it while you're at the same time you're trying to virtue signal. I don't fucking like that. I think that, and I think that honestly, International Women's Day is kind of just a big old virtue signal for companies to be like, hey, we give a shit about women's issues, so let's make a scholarship program for culinary stuff. When really, if you probably looked at Burger King's paying practices and hiring practices, I don't know how many women CEOs are in Burger King, but I am, I imagine it's like the rest of CEOs. So I think that the International Women's Day more often than not gets used as a virtue signal for companies to support women's issues when really they're still co-opting harmful tropes.
Okay, thanks so much. Next, Maddie.
I think this sort of thing around using a international day of whatever, it seems more like a marketing ploy than an actual commitment to working towards more equitable working conditions and a more equitable society for women. It sort of feels like the month of, I think it's October for the NFL, where they all wear pink, and that is apparently supposed to signal some sort of activism, when I don't know that necessarily it is moving the needle at all. Ultimately, under a capitalist society, we have to remember that companies are going to do whatever they see as profitable and whatever is going to put them in a better position competitively. So it's hard for me to take seriously corporate celebrations or displays of solidarity with women. And yeah, so I don't know. For me, it just feels like kind of cheesy and like insulting a little bit.
Thank you so much. Pastel.
Yeah, I think the tweet was like just wrong and virtue signaling. However, I'd like to say, and this is something I don't see a lot of people brought up, they announced the scholarship 2 hours after they posted the 2 original tweets. So I like to believe in my head that they posted those 2 tweets, realized they fucked up, and then made the scholarship 2 hours later, and then posted it. But yeah, pretty virtue signaling, but companies are going to do whatever is profitable for them, as everyone else has already said. Women's issues should be a thing that's like all year round, and it sucks that it's like a one-day thing. But not much we can, or well, there is much we can do. It getting involved locally and bringing up these issues is something we can do all over the country. However, on a large level, I don't know.
Thank you so much. Next, Tara Supernova.
I'm pretty much in agreement with everyone on the panel here. It's just performative wokeness at this point. I think it's absolutely bullshit. Just a capitalist ploy to use a holiday to get people to spend money at their store. I don't think, and I also agree, it's probably in hindsight that they decided to make the scholarship. And also someone in chat mentioned, I don't know if it's verifiable or not, that they paid over $200,000 for an ad. And yet the scholarship was only $25,000. So yeah, I think it's all performative at this point.
All right, thank you. And Stardust.
So I think this whole Burger King thing, just the way that it unfolded was so hilarious and so poetic in a way. It's like very poetic in the way that they could not have done a worse job as far as an ad campaign, right? Like they literally chose the worst thing, and then they got called out for it, and then they made a scholarship, and this, as somebody else pointed out, the scholarship was not even the amount that they paid on the campaign. It's just the entire thing is hysterical to me. It's just I don't know what else to say beyond. I feel like everybody else here has pretty much said what I would say as far as like virtue signaling and things like that. But it is nice to see like see a company just fall on their face so hard over something like this. So
Thanks so much. Finally, Eris.
So this is gonna be very controversial, but I fucking love Burger King. I think they fight for women's rights every day. Okay, I'm kidding. But I'm just in general, I'm way more optimistic than you guys. Like maybe I don't know. I feel like we're kind of beggars, and I feel like we can't be choosers. Not about the Burger King thing, but just about International Women's Day. I think it's like useful to highlight an issue that isn't talked about regularly, especially to have like events focused on it, because you can't just have like, I mean, there's so many issues, right? So you can't expect things to be focused completely on like women's issues all year round every day for when it comes to specifics like events and scholarships, etc. So to me it makes sense to at least like highlight it at a certain time. I think it's also a really unique opportunity to bring attention to women's issues that don't get talked about as often, like African women's issues or trans women's issues. Um, and I've been seeing that a lot lately, and I with International Women's Day, and I think that that's super cool. Um, but I still, even though there are those positives, I do wish that we would actually just take the jump. Like I don't know how long we've been doing Black History Month, and still there is just not enough Black history in normal textbooks, even in a woke country like Canada. Um, I do Middle Eastern history, and it is so frustrating how big, much larger the European history departments are, um, and how much more we focus on European centric history in general. And like I just wish so much, like I wish like we would have actually gotten a more like there are some ideas. Okay, I'm just gonna rant for 1 second. Prime, don't kill me.
That's
But
okay.
there are some things that drive me up the wall that lead to actual harm. Like so many white supremacists think that there have never been like African empires and African civilizations, and that shit can just be dispelled really quickly with just some basic level education in African history. And like that just does not exist. So I don't like, I don't know. So I wish that we would just take those like months or days of learning and actually translate it into something genuine and put actual changes in policies, and I think we should focus on that rather than just saying, oh, like it's all stupid anyways.
So I'm gonna just are you dancing, Alice? I'm not sure what you're doing.
I'm dancing, but I also want to mention I posted the actual scholarship in chat just to verify some of the stuff people are talking about. Yes, it's two $25,000 awardees. It's only for employees of Burger King. It's part of their overall like scholarship program, and yes, they paid about $65,000 for a New York Times ad with the same language that they used in the tweet. So just to validate everything.
So I wanted to disagree with most of the people in the panel, and then agree with what Eris was saying.
Score. Thank you.
Yeah, so most people seem to think International Women's Day was, not worth it or too corporatized, and that might be true in the States. I mean, it's an opportunity for companies to jump on the bandwagon, but like actual on the ground activists are actually doing some good work into raising awareness to various issues, especially when we take a look outside of the States, because it's an international day, right? And if you look across, I mentioned this yesterday, that if you look across Latin America, for instance, there was a lot of work being done raising the issue of femicide. This is a huge problem in Latin America, and I mean, honestly around the world, but like Latin America, it's like epidemic levels right now. I'm gonna mix up. I'm probably gonna mix up the countries, but I know in one country, I want to say it was Mexico. They were gonna have these massive marches in front of like the presidential palace or whatever, right? And they put up barricades around the palace. Again, I hope I'm having the right country. But
No, you're correct.
yeah, and
Yeah, it was Mexico.
okay, and then what women did was they were writing the names of women who had been murdered on those barricades. Right, like I thought that was extremely powerful. And then they even like there were women fighting in other countries, right, against like security forces, like who come in there to like squash their squash our demonstrations, right? Like women are marching all over the place for their lives, for their abortion rights. I didn't get to see what happened in Poland, but I'm sure something big has happened in Poland because abortion rights are rolled back there. So I think this is a perfect time in National Women's Day. I mean, look, you're absolutely correct when you say, like, women's issues should be an everyday thing. Absolutely, 100%. Not gonna disagree. But like, I think it's a worthwhile thing to have a day where we all gather and like do a simultaneous push, right, to put these things out. I think there's value in that. But what do y'all think? Stardust?
Yeah.
Go
Oh,
on.
sorry. No, did you?
Sorry,
Okay.
Stardust, and then we'll go Alice.
Okay. So yeah, I can I can definitely agree. I think in other countries, I think it is it does highlight things, and whether like we want to believe it or not, there are a lot of people. There's a large portion of the population that doesn't really think about women's issues on a day-to-day basis. So I don't really mind there being a holiday for it. I just find the Burger King ad in itself hilarious. Like I laughed at it when I saw it. So, but yeah, that's it's just
Alice?
Ceding to Dr. K. She had her hand up.
Okay. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay,
yeah.
excellent. Yeah, the BK thing is like it's nothing. It's merely endemic of the wider issues of the situation we find ourselves in, right? And it is excellent that there are good actions being taken internationally, and oftentimes, I fully admit my politics and my scope tend to be focused a little bit more inward than outward, so I don't keep up with international events to the same extent I probably should. But yeah, the issue is that we have this day, but on it, like at least in the US, right, are we actually taking what is put forward on these days and then actually tackling the underlying problem of it? Because many of these corporations, many of these groups even that are parading on and on and on about International Women's Day essentially use it to some extent as a, not a cover, but as a way to distract from their own misperpetrations against women that are happening concurrently with their aggressive appeals to, how pro women they are, right? And it really is just like a classic manufactured consent tactic to essentially limit the scope of debate to this sort of narrow sort of activism lens, right? To sort of narrow what you believe is possible, narrow what we can discuss without essentially getting into social faux pas, right? To push a narrative that we should always be actively seeking to improve ourselves, and that there needs to be this constant reevaluation and this constant pushing, right? Like that's not going to get you very far because, for one, and obviously, Women's Day isn't the whole reason for this, but like it's one way of saying like, well, you already have this. You don't need this much greater thing that actually solves the underlying issue at hand.
Okay, Alice.
So I think I would have agreed with you about Prime, and I guess Eris a little bit about International Women's Day and how like, yeah, this is really American centric, and like you guys aren't looking at the bigger picture. But the problem is that when you look into the bigger picture, the International Women's Day marches are the smallest marches that have happened. If you look at Poland, this is literally the smallest march they've had the entire time that this has been ongoing. They've been protesting this for a long time. And you know what overshadowed all of those things? Fucking Burger King. So, Burger King was by the way, the fucking UK Burger King Prime. I don't know if you were aware of that, but it wasn't the US Burger King Twitter. It was the UK Burger King Twitter. So, like, my problem is that I would have agreed with you. I would have said, oh, yeah, they're bringing real image, real.
Wasn't there a post in the New York Times?
They had a post in the New York Times, but the Twitter blow up was the Burger King UK. It was not the U.S. Burger King. They posted an ad. The U.S. Burger King franchise has posted an ad, New York Times, but the UK Burger King posted a a tweet. I guess my problem is that you're saying like that this was that International Women's Day doesn't get just used for like commercialization, but the only thing that was in the news about International Women's Day pretty much in every major facet was Burger King fucking up. It's not like the protests in Poland got real news coverage because it's way more interesting to consumers to see Burger King get fucked. So I guess that's my problem is I wholly disagree with you because yes, there were protests on International Women's Day, but they got no fucking coverage.
So I'll respond, then I'll go to Ark. I'll go you next. But I would say to that I mean that's not the fault of International Women's Day, right? Like it's not the fault of us having this day set aside for women, or like the idea, the concept, right? The concept didn't do this, right? The activists didn't fall flat. I don't know about the size of the protests in Poland, right? But they've been going on for a long time. So whether it's a bigger size or whatever, I don't know. I think they're doing a separate thing over there. But in any case, that's our media falling flat. Like that's like a fault of our journalists, right? Like of our news apparatus that continuously goes for a surface level substance, right? So I would say again, Women's Day, like if International Women's Day is being used by activists to do activist stuff, right? To do demonstrations, to raise awareness, then they're doing their job. The media on the other side needs to do its job, the American media, right? And it's not like every news outlet around the world did the same thing, right? There were other news outlets that didn't give a shit about Burger King, right? Especially internationally, they were covering what was happening there, so it wasn't, that's my contention.
They weren't. You claim that, but you just
what news outlets? So every news outlet around the world was just covering Burger King. That's it.
That was pretty much the major front page stories for a lot of internet news. Yes.
No. I'm talking about internationally. Like that's it. No, nothing else.
Let's see. BBC posted this as the front page story, and they didn't post anything
That's
about
UK.
fucking Poland
That's the
or
UK.
anything
The
else.
stuff that I've been hearing is all about Meghan Markle, like for Women's Day, to be honest.
Yeah, that's England.
No,
Another
but that's
fucking
England.
thing that just distracts us all.
But it's England, Alice.
It's all
So-
distractions. The
But
problem
I
is
agree.
you
I
can't-
agree. But I'm saying that like other news outlets have covered. I learned about all those things about International Women's. I didn't intuit this. I actually learned it from the news, right? So I don't. But okay.
I guess I think like Prime, I agree with you. Prime, I agree with you because I was going to make that point, right? Because after Eris and you got done speaking, I was kind of like, well, maybe International Women's Day isn't just this giant virtue signal, right? Like if these are actual things that are going on, then maybe there's some merit, right? However, I would say that International Women's Day needs to try harder then, or like that the way. I guess how am I trying to say this? I think that the fact that Burger King tweet was part of the news and not Poland's activists is a symptom of sexism. Like we don't want to actually address these issues. We don't actually want to look at these real protests that are really saying something about women's issues. We just want to concentrate on Burger King. So I would actually say that that it that points to Women's Day being used as a virtue signal. However, I think that it can be better, and I think that the media needs to do better in that Women's Day shouldn't be just this virtue signal. It should be addressing the actual issues. So I think that there's like points in column A and column B for both of you.
I do think that the media can do better, right? I mean, the media can always do better, but if that's the standard, then that's like then we're never gonna make anyone happy with any kind of movement
Yes.
and everything. And I don't know, like to me, the beauty in something like Women's Day is that it can mean something different to everyone. So like, I mean, I live the shittiness of being a woman every day. I don't need a reminder. But for me, like what Women's Day is about like remembering the women who are not as privileged as I am. So it's a moment for me to take myself out of my own experience and my own shittiness of being a woman and like kind of be like, wow, a hell of a lot of women have it way worse, right? And to to gain that perspective and to start helping them, or to be thinking about that, gaining that mind awareness, right? Like most women, for most women in the West are more privileged than around the world, and it's easy to sit in our high horse and complain about things like mansplaining, but for women around the world, they are still fighting for the right to go to school, to not be forcefully sold as brides, to not be regularly raped in war. um, and even in the United States, there are Orthodox Jewish women that are forced to marry their rapists every day, and destroy their bodies, making 10 plus babies where they're not allowed to learn math. This stuff happens, and like, for me, it's just a reminder to be thinking about those women, because those women don't often get attention on places like Twitter, or in our lefty high horses. Um, yeah.
So let's go to Pastel, then Dr. K.
To clarify my position, I completely agree. There are things going on International Women's Day that are really good for activism. My issue is the fact that like Burger King was basically like the most talked about thing that I saw at least. And so like I think we could be doing better if like news or media was covering like the more like intricate like topics of the more nuanced problems. I don't think International Women's Day existing is inherently a bad thing. I just think the way that we go about it is probably not the best, at least. I think corporations definitely do use it just to virtue signal. Like as we saw with Burger King. I do think it can be better though. Like I do think it's probably, or no, I would say it's most definitely like net positive that it exists and that it's a thing and it can draw attention to all these issues. I just wish it was like used better, I guess.
Thanks so much. Let's go Dr. K, then Maddie.
I mean, you know, I think one, you need to examine what is the incentive, and this is for any issue ever, right? Is examine what is the incentive structure in place for this bad actor to be acting in the way that they do, right? Why is our media covering bullshit instead of actually important things? Well, it's because that's what is, financially incentivized, because that's, what gets, you know, one, you aren't giving a platform to a group that could, in theory, call question to your authority. And two, it's easy sensationalist garbage that gets people rage clicking for days, right? So that's the incentive structure for why, our media sort of acts in that way. And I say that, when examining International Women's Day, I like the holiday, like I do. I just think that it needs to get back to its roots that it had back in the 1900s, right? When it was a day that wasn't co-opted by corporations, but rather celebrated women in the workforce, celebrated, who they were, their pivotal role in society, and let them have like a day where their contributions to society, were elevated and given a platform, rather than what it is now, which is a really good opportunity to sell stuff. And that's what it is in the US. Again, I'll keep in mind I'm being Amerocentric or whatever with this, right? But yeah, I think that it needs to get back to its roots as a holiday of women's labor and women's strength.
So we'll go to Maddie, Tara, then Ark.
I think I love that Dr. K brought up what its original intent was in the early 20th century. It's important to remember that International Women's Day was initially organized by groups of like women's socialist groups, and they were demanding, better pay, fewer hours, more workers' rights. And it's interesting that in just over a century, that message, that like pro-worker message, can
Right to
be
vote, sexual
distilled down.
discrimination.
Exactly. And I agree. I think so. Prime, I agree with you in that this has the potential, and maybe in other areas of the world, it is more similar to this than it is here in the United States, but it becomes a day of standing up for your rights, of demonstrations, of speaking out for the rights of women, for the rights of workers. So I think, I don't know, and now sort of having learned more about the history of International Women's Day, it makes me kind of want to be like, okay, well, what can I do to pay homage to its original roots, right? Like, how can I make it so that we change the conversation from focusing on something stupid that some old male ad executive at a fast food company tweeted out versus making real change and making a statement about the way women are treated in the workforce, and also celebrating the heroes of worker organizer movements and socialist movements. So it's just been fascinating now that, like, in preparing for this and doing research, admittedly, I didn't realize that was where the origins of International Women's Day, and it completely changes my view on how we could use it and leverage it and do right by those who originally founded the movement.
So I'll go to Tara and Ark next, but I just want to quickly respond, and I'll go straight to Tara. But like exactly what you're just saying there, right? This reminds me of both May Day and Gay Pride Day, or like the Gay
most
Pride
of the
parade.
cool
Yeah,
holidays.
yeah. May Day, being starting here in the States, I believe it's May 1st, right? The celebration of the union rights and the struggle of workers, but like we don't celebrate that here in the States. Like it began here, but like it spread internationally, and people, like, it's serious celebrations that happen, celebrations and demonstrations that happen all over the world for workers struggling, fighting for their rights, right? And they all know like the history of May Day, right, and like how it originated here, but then people internationally are shocked to know that Americans actually don't know the history. That Americans, because it was actually literally stamped out here, right? Like,
left-wing history in the U.S. is oppressed.
Yeah. So that's exactly what happened. So people here don't know. I imagine many of my audience don't know what May Day is at all. Maybe me not even heard of it, right? But that's like part of the problem. So that's gone. And then there's like the Gay Pride Parade in New York, which was at first a celebration of the LGBT movement and a stand of defiance, right? But now it's gotten extremely corporatized. You have floats like with like sponsors, like banks sponsoring them, right? And like before, when it was like a celebration where people could just like jump in and like express themselves like from the sidelines, like, come on, enjoy. Like, no, stay away. Like, we got police presence. The police who used to crack our skulls, right, are now protecting this parade because, hey, it's got to go as planned. We got these sponsors. They don't like surprises, right? And so
co-option.
Exactly. So to replace that, there's another, and I keep forgetting the name of this. I'm sorry, but there's a secondary parade being made by other organizers to get back to that more revolutionary spirit, right? So these things happen. History is lost. Things are co-opted, like Dr. K is saying. And unless we're actually fighting for them, right, then you'll see what we saw here with International Women's Day, right? Where like it's like it's a side note to a sideshow, being the Burger King ad, So let's go to Tara and then Ark.
It's funny that you say that not many people heard of May Day. This is literally the first time I've heard of it. Never heard of it in my life. I don't know if that's because I'm Canadian and it's more of an American thing or not. I don't know.
No, it's actually more of a Canadian thing these days.
Is it really? Oh, fuck, did I know? I'm sorry. And funny enough, like you said earlier, we're so self-centered. We don't have a whole lot of knowledge about what's going on in the rest of the world. I think part of it is because of these capitalist organizations. They come in and they bastardize the meaning of these days, and completely divert of what the day is supposed to be about, and it's supposed to be about women and women's rights, and make it about a misogynistic joke. Like that, how far off the mark can you be? It's actually mind-boggling.
The point is to defang, I suppose.
Perhaps it's just a sensational marketing, like you said, but like honestly, it's
having worked in like entertainment marketing and with big brands like that, half the time when I see shit like that's so toned up, it's because their marketing departments and social media departments are run by like old white men who think that they're still kind of stuck in that like edgelord mentality where they're like, no, we're creating culture, we're getting this, we're starting a conversation, we're just sparking conversation. And it's like, no, you're parroting like misogynist bullshit, and it's unhelpful and
We're taking back
unnecessary.
misogyny, baby.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, fine. So, do you need to say anything else, Tara? Or
Oh no, that was it.
okay, Ark, please.
Yeah. So I kind of wanted to talk about how I think that you could have big companies virtue signaling in maybe a correct way, right? Like instead of doing like treating a misogynistic quote and then like having like two $2,500 scholarships, like maybe tweet about how you're gonna like get together women employees, a panel of women employees, and talk to them about their needs, and you're going to promote that, or like talk about how we're going to have an internal review on pay structure in regards to sexes, and like instead of just saying like oh, women need to be in the kitchen and we're going to give some people $50,000, instead maybe actually draw it to the original point of Women's Day and have like, hey, Burger King is getting together a panel of women to talk about what Burger King could do better and how in our treatment of women employees, and that could be a way where you get to have your cake and eat it too.
That makes too much sense.
Stardust. Oh, and Stardust and then Pastel.
I think there are a couple people who had their hands up before me, so I don't want to.
Oh no. Well, you haven't had a chance to talk for a while, so go ahead, and then we'll go to Pastel and Alice.
Okay, yeah, I agree that Burger King's marketing was very tone deaf. I think if anything, I kind of like to look at it in the light that if we needed any proof that Women's Day and women's issues need to be focused on, Burger King definitely set the example for that, right? Just how phenomenally bad the campaign was. I do think even within the U.S., we have lots of communities that are marginalized more than others, female communities that are marginalized more than others, right? And if you like break down the conditions that different women of different backgrounds live in, it can be widely different, right? So I do think that the International Women's Day, I think this focus on women's issues still needs to be there, because we're like, as much as we can say like, yeah, it should be every day, it's not happening every day. And you know, whether we want to believe it or not, like we still have male friends who make like off-color jokes, and we still have issues of sexual harassment and things like that, right? So I don't think these campaigns really, to me, they don't matter in the long run, right? I look at the Burger King campaign, I laugh at it, and I'm like, you know, it's stupid, it's idiocy, and if we needed an example, there it is, right? It's pretty much there. Like, I don't know. I find it. I find that yes, some of these campaigns may be virtue signaling, but I am very glad that to rather have a company that is attempting to focus on these issues, even if they're being disingenuine or whatever, or they're not really, they don't really care. I'd rather have them focusing on it and faking that care than not have any focus on it whatsoever, right?
Okay. Let's go to Pastel, Alice, and Dr. K.
Yeah, so I completely agree. At least, like, while it may just mostly be virtue signaling, at least they're like doing something. I'd rather take anything over nothing. So, like,
Yeah.
I think that's probably a good thing. I really do wish Burger King did more. Like, they could. I don't even think you could argue like, oh man, if they did anything more than what they did, they would have a like loss of profit. Which I mean, I guess they would technically have some more. But like, well, what was the 2 scholarships? $2,500. That's it.
25,000. So 50,000.
Okay, 50,000. And how much was the ad they ran in the New York Times? Was it like 67,000?
Roughly 65,000. Yes.
Yeah. See, like, I don't know. I think it would be far better if they like, maybe did more, or actually like talked about the history of the women's movement That would be really cool. But they just made 2 scholarships. I mean, again, it's better than nothing. I just wish whoever said like to get back to the roots of the movement, I think that would be great. Like that would have been like amazing.
Let's go to Alice and then Dr. K.
So my only point in all this, and I'm going to shut up about this because it's just clearly not getting anywhere, is that we're talking right now about Burger King and about whether it's being co-opted and whatever, and you just brought up like the fact that we're like spinning off like other types of days like this because we are seeing that they're like that they're turned into like essentially a way to make money essentially. And I guess I just don't understand how how anyone can say that this is not just like being co-opted as a way to make money, as to to that point of Burger King's literally just like trying to get their name out there, bring awareness to their brand, whatever. Okay, and all the while we have all these other issues that just don't get publicity because they don't bring these other it's not going to bring a newspaper money to run an ad or a story about Poland or protests wherever else. I feel like yeah, we should get back to the root of this movement. We should, but I don't think media is going to help us in that. But I also don't think anyone gives a fuck. So I guess we have to figure out like a better way to be public without needing to rely on like this type of media. I don't really know how that kind of thing gets solved. Like nobody's wrong here. It's just we're not getting publicity.
I just feel. Oh, we'll go to Dr. K then Tara. I don't think you're wrong. I'm agreeing with you that there's been a lot of corporate corporate takeover of these things, right? Like more of this pink washing bullshit, right? So I'm agreeing with you. That's the case. But I think what you're doing is mixing two things, right? Like the media and corporate response to these types of events, right? Like International Women's Day, like Gay Pride Parade, like MLK Day, right? Like MLK Day, like they use it to like fucking sell mattresses, right? Like they're like you've seen like the I Have a Dream ads, and like one day you will have a comfortable like fucking mattress to lay on, like this is a thing that happens. But is it the fault of like the activists? Is it like the fault of the spirit that drove people to create MLK Day in the first place? Should we not have it because corporations will take any opportunity?
Yes. But we shouldn't fucking have it. We should do something else rather than have a fucking day for it.
Why?
Like,
why? I don't understand.
You keep responding in such a weird way. Like
I feel the same way about you right now. Because I feel like our positions are closer than you're making them seem to be.
They are very close. It's just that I don't understand why. So if corporations are going to destroy every type of singular day like this, like today we can advertise about women, tomorrow we can advertise about the gays, next day we can advertise, then we need to do something different. That's clearly not working for activism.
So I disagree with your framing of this. And
I disagree with yours.
I understand. So what I'm trying to say is that like corporations will do what corporations do. Bad actors will do what bad actors do, right? And that's separate from the actual celebration and the work that can be done that day to raise awareness, right? I think so. So this is a big argument. So this is basically the same argument as to Black History Month in general, right? So people say that, well, one, it's the shortest month, so there's that. But two, that every day should be Black History a day, right? Like because Black history is American history. Like these things are intertwined, right? Unlike like in a textbook, you'll see there's like a separate section, right? For like, oh, this is a thing that Black people did, right? There was slavery, and then that ended, and then skip to the civil rights era, and then that was cool, and then I don't know, like George Washington Carver did stuff with peanuts and whatever, right? And that's it, right? Other than understanding that Black history is like intertwined completely with American history, and that we've been here every step of the way. So just like our Asian brothers and sisters, just like our Hispanic brothers and sisters, right? Like that they've have achievements all along, right? But the reason why we have Black History Month, the reason why I believe it's still a valuable thing to have, is because it gives. If we don't have it, then people won't even fucking bother. They won't even bother to think of these things, right? Like it gives us a moment and time to reflect, and to think of the history of all these things, right? And I think that in itself is valuable, and time to organize around these things. Now, because with that attention, that gives us mind space, right? So we can organize around these moments for a larger movement, right? Okay, so you came to International Women's Day. Maybe you didn't know about it before, right? But like you decided, like, this is the day I'm going to step out, maybe join this demonstration. Well, that's a way for organizers to get in contact with you. It's like, well, we're doing other things throughout the year, right? But the fact that a corporation may also use this to shill for themselves, well, I mean, that's not the fault the activists.
I could be wrong, but I think what Alice is concerned about is this idea that like we have Black History Month, now racism is over. We have International Women's Day, now sexism is over. And I think that that's the point that Alice is speaking to, of the concern over International Women's Day. Is like it's just this patch, and now we have the day. Now we don't have to speak about it anymore.
But
Sexism.
Yes.
Is that true, Alice?
But
Yes, that is accurate to what I'm saying, and it's clear because we keep reiterating the same point, and you're agreeing with me, but then just wanting to get a point in. Like,
I'm not trying to. Oh, hold on, that's
it's-
unfair. I'm just responding
it's
to
being
you.
co-opted, and the commercialization of these types of movements is the problem because it literally is portrayed to the public who are stupid. Remember, public is really dumb. The public sees International Women's Day as, oh, Burger King made this stupid fuck up. And then that's where it stops. And yes, the public is pretty stupid overall.
They
So I
do
think
it with gay rights every year.
Yes, exactly. It's the same fucking thing.
While refusing to
gay
ever
rights are
touch the
solved.
underlying issue.
Right. It's kind of the issue of like if there was a trans rights day and like someone would say hey, trans rights are still an issue, then a asshole could say oh, well, you have trans rights day, so why are you complaining?
Yes, and that's what they get used for.
Oh, I
and that's
already
why.
get that.
Yeah, me too. I get the same
Yeah.
thing. And this
That's
day
already a
gets used the
thing.
same way.
Okay, you disagree. That's fine. Terra Supernova, Dr. K, and then I think someone. Oh, Stardust, please.
Well, originally you said Dr. K was supposed to go before me, so I don't know. If you
Just
wanna
go, please.
let me
Terra
skip mine.
Supernova,
Okay,
Dr.
sorry.
K. Yes.
Sorry. Sorry. Okay, alrighty. Yeah, so I'm basically just piggybacking off of what Alice said. It is a distraction at this point. It's a distraction, and it's not doing its job. It's not being effective. The fact that we have a day, yes, it's great. It's great that we can acknowledge that there's an issue, but it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. There's inherent flaw in the purpose of the day when it's not accomplishing what it's setting out to do. So at the end of the day, is it a good thing to still have it? I'm almost on the camp. No, we need education reform. We don't need a fucking day. And yeah, that's it.
Okay. I think I said Pastel, then Dr. K. Did I say that? Oh, sorry, I just Stardust. Sorry, I apologize. Stardust and Dr. K. Yeah.
I think Dr. K was before me.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Dr. K, then.
That's all good. I've been taking notes. I'm gonna take up a while, anyways. It's all good. So yeah, the fake concern that a company shows it is entirely exists to just shut you up for a year, right? Nothing is going to change unless you tackle the underlying superstructure. And these companies, they're never going to do that because, refusing the roots of the movement and doing this performative bullshit is exactly what follows the profit incentive, right? Preserving the superstructure, preserving things exactly the way they are, is completely in the interest of those in power because they benefit from keeping it exactly how it is, right? Corporations aren't going to liberate you. They won't even sell it to you. You have to demand it. You have to demand it loudly. Keep it the holiday, honestly. But if you want to help it get back to its roots and to make it, something that isn't just performative, it needs to be a day that CEOs and that the most powerful misogynists, the most powerful people, in preserving this superstructure, absolutely fear the approach of, right? They should dread the approach of this day if you're a misogynist, right? It should be a day of education, sure, but it needs to be more than that. It needs to be something that, powerful corporations and powerful misogynists don't want to be associated with, that there is no profit to be made on International Women's Day because of the stigma attached to it, right? Just like with Pride, this needs to be a day that becomes a riot again, right? Like that'd be my suggestion personally, but I don't know how everyone else feels.
Stardust, please.
So this might just be like uh, a very I guess like personal viewpoint about this whole topic, but I personally am I think that it is beneficial, although I know that corporations don't have our best interests at heart. Their best their interest is basically the bottom line and whatever is the most profitable. I understand that, but as somebody who's grown up and is not the norm, or wasn't the norm growing up, and never saw myself on TV or never saw myself in media or even commercials. I think I think it is important that um, that people get to see this representation, right? And get to see themselves and get to like see themselves normalized, right? And then secondly, I think that yes, we need to focus on more important issues, but the impact of never seeing yourself and never being considered normal growing up is huge on your self-esteem, right? So I think that is, I think we're really like oversimplifying it when we say like, oh, well, these corporations are only doing it for money, and we shouldn't even have a day because they're just exploiting it, right? I Yeah, sure, they're exploiting it, but I would rather like I would rather see like more people get normalized in media, right? And I think yes, we can focus on other issues. We have to, because there are still women who are very marginalized in America, right? And there are women who live in poverty and who don't have access to clean drinking water, and whose children grow up without access to clean drinking water, and who grow up with lead poisoning. And even the most trace amounts of lead lead to cognitive issues later on in life, right? And behavioral issues later on in life. So I think that, like, yes, focus on these things, but you shouldn't be relying on a corporation in the first place to focus on these things. The fact that you're like putting all of this, you're making this corporation shoulder all of the weight. If you actually care about it, then you'll go out and you'll speak about it.
Excellent.
Oh,
Yeah.
Maddie,
Say,
please.
chef's
Maddie and then
kiss.
Mark. Sorry. Maddie?
Yeah,
Please.
no, I think that brings up a really interesting point, and it echoes actually what someone was saying in my stream and my chat, saying, well, while it's frustrating because you would hope that the educational system would teach you a lot of these stories or make you aware of these prominent people, whether it's like for Black History Month or Women's Month, Women International Women's Day. But that is one thing that is positive that comes out of set days like this, is that you do get exposed to stories and people who are massively impactful and influential in history and helped drive forward in our pursuit for equity and equal rights. Like this, a friend of mine was saying, he said, Black History Month taught him the story of Doris Miller, who's getting an aircraft carrier named after him, and he wouldn't otherwise known about it if it weren't for Black History Month, because there's this focus on all these other stories. Now, granted, like, it's not a good replacement long term, obviously, for just making sure that those marginalized people or people from those marginalized communities are part of like the normal teaching curriculum. Like every American student should learn these stories rather than just the narrow white centric version of history that they typically get. But that is one advantage to having days like this, is that it gives activists and organizers and nonprofits, and even, even corporations, like, the chance to highlight stories that maybe people otherwise wouldn't know. And then they can, it sparks that pursuit of knowledge, that intellectual curiosity, so people can dig further and learn more. But I guess that's one advantage I could see.
Okay, let's go to Pastel, then Dr. K.
Yeah, so this conversation made me realize that I wish I did more locally, like setting up some type of like discussion group or a forum or anything locally on International Women's Day, because like I definitely should have. I don't know why I didn't even like think about it, because it just definitely slipped my mind. So I'm like already planning on stuff to do within a couple weeks, hopefully, or even like already going to like write stuff down for next year because we shouldn't be relying on just corporations to hope we get stories out there. Our local activists can be doing like big things for the community, make sure that like topics are made aware of. So I'm already going to be working on changing that so I can actually do something. And I would encourage that everyone everywhere who's watching the stream also tries to do that.
Dr. K, please.
Yeah, I agree. I think we can all do a lot more. I wish I'd done more with CC as well. That's why these conversations are so important to have, right? To examine like our own role in perpetuating stuff too.
Yeah, like I'm a big person for like doing things pragmatically, and like I definitely like dropped the ball yesterday with doing things.
Please, Dr. K.
Yeah, and I'm not saying do away with the representation, right? In fact, to Stardust, I would say not only does there need to be more representation, there needs to be representation for places that we are essentially never shown women in our media, right? And not just our media, but just in conversation in general, right? Like we need people to stick up for women janitors, for women longshoremen, for women construction workers, you know, for not just the high achievers, but for everyone, right? Irregardless of where they fall in the class structure. For those who are unemployed, for those who are being shanghaied and held in concentration camps by ICE right now, for shit like that, right? And I think that that's not going to happen as long as we allow this to continue to be a carnival of performance and have our information and our activism limited by the scope of what corporate and what governmental structures deem appropriate. So yeah, wholeheartedly agree. More representation again, make Women's Day a riot again. And I'm gonna ask the chat, like, whatever you guys are doing, what do you guys think about that?
Let's go to Stardust. You're muted, Stardust.
Jinx.
Sorry. By carnival of performance, what do you mean?
Like,
Hello?
you're seeing this,
Oh,
yeah?
sorry. I'm sorry. Just a second.
She's just asking you to clarify.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, yeah. I'm asking, like, what do you mean by carnival of performance? What does that mean?
It like there's this trend of being like, well, like the BK thing is a super easy example of this, where it's like, essentially taking the breadth of the female experience of all we can do to help them, and narrowing that down to a misogynistic joke with a tiny scholarship attached, or with a tweet highlighting like your female drone pilots, and then not doing anything more than that. Or how the LAPD was like, we are stand for International Women's Day. Meanwhile, they are simultaneously rehiring a cop with a long history of abuse against women on the exact same day. Like, when I say something is performative, I mean that they are saying one thing, but are actually doing something completely different when eyes are not focused on them.
You can respond, Stardust.
Okay, yeah. I guess I would follow that up with the question of like, yes, these things are performative, but do you think that these things can have the potential to shift cultural ideas
What do you mean by these things?
towards actions, like towards actual action, right? Like so like the things that you're talking about, right? Yes, they're performative on Women's Day, but these are things that still have an impact on um people growing and people in the future, right? Because it shifts culture a little bit when we all see, even if it is performative, we know it's performative, but the end goal,
I think its ability to
like,
shift is unlikely. There are
you
certainly
don't
people who will be shifted by it, but I believe that the people
uh,
who are shifted by it were already amicable to the message in the first place, and that people who are dead set to be misogynistic or maintaining existing power structures will not, in fact, be moved by a couple tweets on International Women's Day.
no, I
Now,
mean,
if
I
it
don't
was a
mean even
riot
by
again, it certainly could start changing some minds, and I think that would be very interesting and very helpful to all
Riot would
women if
probably
we
do
did
the
that.
exact opposite.
Actually, so what I would say is actually, so when I say like shifting culture, right? I talked about representation earlier, right? And how
Sure.
not seeing yourself in media, it does affect your self-esteem when all your
Yeah, and
dolls are
I'm
like a
saying
different
keep that
race than you.
representation. That's
Yes,
good.
yes.
It needs to be
Let me finish. Let me
expanded.
finish. I'm not finished. So even that representation, right? That representation has a huge impact on somebody growing up, right? Just like I would argue that even these performative things that these corporations do will have an impact on people growing up, people developing their sense of self, right? So I don't see like I don't see what the issue is with, yes, that like it's performative, but it's still more like it's more acceptance. You see acceptance, and we become accepting of that, right? It becomes the norm, right? If you make these things the norm, then um, eventually people will be taking better actions, right?
Certainly, like if you hit a tank with a stick, right, and you leave a dent in it, yeah, you have done damage to that thing, right? You have made a dent, as it were. But you are not going to be fundamentally defeating or changing the underlying structure unless you take more drastic measures than what you're doing now, right? I think
Well, it's gradual.
yeah,
Culture doesn't
I'm
change
saying.
overnight. Culture changes
Oh,
over like
I most
decades.
certainly disagree. Culture is completely arbitrary, and we can change it as fast or as slow as we would like. It is simply that we have all culturally agreed that culture cannot be changed quickly. That is the reason that we cannot change it quickly.
Well, the culture tends to stay with like within a generation, right? So when a generation dies out, then it shifts, right? And then that generation dies out and it shifts, right? To force cultural change is kind of like it's I feel like it's very
If a culture
complicated
is
and very
fundamentally
hard.
Perfectly,
destructive,
you're
it should
begging
be
the
changed
question,
as fast as
Romeo.
possible.
Like you say that if we have the ability to change the culture, then the culture can change. Like that's the exact thing. Of course, if we have the ability, but that's like having the abilities is culture itself, right? Like the group of people. That's why it's challenging to change. I don't know. It just seems like begging the question. Seems like a moot point.
Again, there's a fundamentally broken superstructure, and I am saying that it needs to be changed as quickly as possible, and our energy needs to be pushed on it as much as possible. And so, saying, well, let's do this incrementally. I think fundamentally, yes, it could be done incrementally, but that will cause people to who otherwise would have had their underlying problems solved to have to wait, another 30, 40 years to have those problems solved instead of, changing them now.
Sarah, you can respond, then we'll go to Ark.
Okay. I think this whole idea of like it needs to be a riot again is still it's still not really addressing people who don't have the ability to go out and riot, right? Like they're working people and people
Well, yes,
who
you
like
riot for those who
need
can't.
to. Right. But there are people who are still working and they are still struggling to put food on the table, and a corporation doing these minor steps, right? Is still changing something that their children see, right? On
It's
television or
something.
see
It's not
in
enough,
media,
though,
right? Well, of course it's not enough, right?
which is
But
why I
like this
demand
whole
more
thing
is
about
done.
Let her finish.
yeah, so the whole thing about this being like it needs to be a riot again. Riots are destructive, right? And like while
Yes.
I'm pro rioting, they often destroy the things that these people in marginalized communities work for, right? And if you spent like 20 years as an immigrant, you came here, you built a shop, and
Well, that's why you
everything
riot in the
around you is
wealthy
getting.
communities, not the poor communities.
Oh, okay. So we're able to like just designate that.
Yes,
That's just something
actually,
we
have
can
to
we
clean that
can
shit up.
control
during
a
the
whole
LA
crowd.
George Floyd protests, we actually did designate just that, and we did do
Okay, but
just
how
that.
many crowds are easy to control like that? They're really not, right? Like I'm all for protesting, but controlling crowd control is so hard,
That's
especially
why
with
you organize this
protests.
stuff out beforehand.
Let's go
It
to
it
Yeah,
still
she's
doesn't
aware of
work.
that. That's rude.
Let's
I,
let's let's go to
Wait,
Arc.
what was that?
Let's try Arc for a second, and then we'll go
No,
to
I didn't
Sure.
genuinely didn't catch that.
Arc.
I act if they want to clarify whatever, I can wait. But yeah, I guess I kind of think a little bit we're going around in circles. And one thing that I learned in I love Calliopean Club, but I the Discord that I kind of came from, that I learned to hone my debate skills, is called Intel. There's someone here, they're watching and stuff like that. So hi, Intel. They what we try to do is focus on solution-based debate, right? Or solution-based argumentation. So they kind of steered me in a direction to kind of ask a question, which is, given the audience we have even now on the stream, how can we effectively communicate what issues matter most to us as women, and what can be done by each of us to make these changes a reality? So we can say like International Women's Day isn't doing what we want, right? But what can we do, I guess, to make International Women's Day better and get our needs met?
I have some solutions like right now. I mean, first of all, I think Prime doing what he does, using a male platform to voice, to platform women, every week, and giving women the majority of the room to speak. I think that's a huge part of that. So like, Prime, good on you for doing that shit. On top of that, I think just in general, I mean, I'm really biased with history and learning. Like, I think using it as an opportunity to like, if you normally play a video game with your friends, like, why don't you be like, okay, guys, let's watch a documentary today. Let's like, about like, I don't know, like women's rights in India or something. And just try to use the opportunities that you can on an individual basis. I mean, even if you're doing it by yourself, like, read a Wikipedia article on I don't know, like some random women's issue, right? Or read some feminist literature, like anything like that. I think education is just so fucking powerful. And yeah, I just like, if you have the ability to, if you have the internet, you've got like the greatest human resource at your fingertips. So that's what I would recommend for people to do.
Okay. Stardust and Dr. K, and then Pastel. I see.
I like those ways of advocating. I also encourage people to go out into their local communities, volunteer in those local communities, and be good role models for the younger generations, right? And one thing I also try is like not to like shame younger people for what they like, right? We were all young once, and we all had some questionable tastes. So I think that, and then also like reading feminist literature, trying to plant those ideas in the younger generation is super important.
Dr. K, and then we'll go to Pastel.
Yeah, that's all excellent stuff. I like all of that. I would say, in addition to that, also consider, doing some collective action, actively calling out, misogynistic power structures within your community, and actively making steps to improve the living conditions of, women. Things like, seeking better employment safeguards, actively protesting for a higher minimum wage, because as you can statistically find, women are more likely to hold lower wage positions. So if the base floor is higher, then everyone benefits, including women. Stuff like this I would also recommend, in addition to what is suggested by Eris and by Stardust.
Pastel. And then we'll move on to the next topic.
Yeah, and so like locally bringing like other solutions, bringing up the fact that like in developing nations we could be doing so much better over there to make sure the women over there are getting like proper health education and all this, which if we start doing on like a local level, even though we can't really have much impact other than like donations, we can make this an important issue to where people locally are running with this in their platform, and then state level, and then finally getting to the federal level where we can actually get like stuff being done federally and real support to these women in developing nations. Like there's a bunch of things we could be doing, which I think we definitely should be doing as like solutions to this.
Yeah, I think that even if you're not like an activist type person, you're not like loud or you don't like, I don't know, encountering conflict. Like that's the kind of person I am. That stuff really stresses me out. So I think that there's so many other ways, like just the way that you can just change someone's mind with a great argument, learning great argumentation skills, and and just like promoting that kind of knowledge between people. Like people have a lot way more power to do stuff and make changes than they realize, like on a personal scale. I mean, just as simple as like authors like writing stories and promoting literature, like just fiction, like women's fiction and stuff, and movies, I think can also really help.
Okay, so let's move on to the next topic. And we will. Sorry, it's getting busy outside of my door, so if you hear background noise, I apologize. But yes, we'll go to. We're going to use. Let's go to the bonus topic next, and then we'll do topic 2 last. All right. So bonus topic. Switzerland has banned the burqa and the niqab from being worn in public. The ban is on non-medical face coverings in general and does not mention religious garb. However, the campaign for the ban used Muslim imagery while asking the public to stop extremism. Is this ban helpful? Are the
No.
Islamic religious coverings a sign of oppression? If it is or is not, should the government intervene to stop the use of the burqa? Excuse me. Is this what helping Muslim women looks like? So we started this conversation last night. It quickly spiraled. So hopefully it'll be better here. So yeah, we'll try it again. So talking about the burqa. So again, there's a burqa ban that happened within Switzerland. At least was approved by the voters in Switzerland. So we'll start with Alice for the minute-long
Sure.
introduction. Yeah.
Sure, I'm not going to use the full minute again. Basically, my only real problem with this is the same problem I always have, that no, this is not helping. Overall, you're just restricting like religious freedom for no real reason. Especially the messaging, I think, is stop extremism is a little bit excessive. Having options is always good. Encouraging like women to feel comfortable with having options like this. But I don't know. I think it's a little too far to put in place a ban on a piece of clothing that essentially is obviously targeted at a particular religion. You're not helping them. They're still going to be oppressed by their community. You're not really doing anything. It just looks good on your PR sheet or something. So not a big fan of this type of movement. Not a big fan of this type of what I think is Islamophobic like messaging in general. So not a big fan of this overall. Not for any aspect of it.
Okay. Please let's go to Dr. K.
America and the European Union fuck up the Middle East, right? And now there are a whole bunch of refugees coming from the Middle East and North Africa too, actually. And so now, in order to discourage, European countries have to take in these refugees because they fucked up their country. So now they're coming to the country that fucked up their country as a way of trying to start a new life there, right? And essentially, these countries are passing this stuff to say, nah, not this one. You don't want to come to this one. This one's bad for you, man. As a way of trying to pass the buck on to others, right? France, most famously so. France, obviously, being very well known, I would say, for its colonization of Islamic countries, especially Algeria and Syria. That said, right? They're trying to enforce their cultural norms onto people who are coming into their country, when really, and even if you are against, the burqa and all that, the fastest way to get them to stop doing that, whatever behavior you don't like, even if you are some violent, disgusting nationalist, right, is to say, all right, we are going to fully make you feel welcomed within our country. Thus, you incentivize them integrating culturally and adopting the cultural behaviors of your country because you treat them well there, right? Like that is the quickest way. If you look at the history of Southern European immigrants and Irish coming to the United States, that was how you quickly got them to give up their cultural traditions and integrate in, right? And whether that's a good or a bad thing, it's a very, very complicated topic, and I think it's kind of subjective one way or the other. Or yeah, it's up to your opinion, right? Like,
So, just short introduction. And we'll
yeah,
move on.
fuck the bands.
Ark, thank you.
Yeah. So I wish that I was more educated on this topic, right? Because one aspect that I really liked about this question was where you said like whether or not you believe it is oppressive to women, or I'm sorry, I don't have it up in front of me, but that part of the question, should it be legal? Because I think that it's kind of a way of these governments to have their cake and eat it too, as in they can say, well, this isn't Islamophobic. These women are oppressed, and that's why they're having to wear the burqa. So even though it is absolutely Islamophobic, to ban people's culture and way of doing it, whether or not you disagree or find it whatever you find it, it's a way of them being able to virtue signal and be Islamophobic at the same time.
Okay.
But that's my point.
Sure. Maddie.
It's interesting that the rationale seems to be that, oh, well, these women are oppressed. And what this does is it removes the oppression, when, again, it's just mostly men telling women what is acceptable to wear and how they should present themselves. I also take issue with the framing of it, where they're framing it as fighting extremism, as if there's no possible way for there to be like that Islamic quote extremism is really the threat, and that threat culminates in what women choose to wear. I don't see this outrage being matched for Catholic nuns. I don't see it being matched when I think it was a few years ago when France tried to ban the burkini, which is just a full body covering for Muslim women to wear when they like go to the beach. And I don't see people having similar outrage when people wear scuba gear that covers their entire body. So I think this is entirely misguided. It reeks of misogyny and of trying to take control over how women present themselves. I happen to have quite a few friends who are Muslim and who either choose or not choose to wear a headscarf. And in all the cases of those who do, and a good friend of mine lives in Egypt. She moved there with her husband. And there, she always wore it. She says, this is a sign, at least for me, she's like, I take it as a sign of liberation, because I'm not relying on like my beauty or whatever. Like it helps. I feel as though I'm respected more for my mind, for other things in this case. So it means something different to different people, and to just assume that it's a sign of oppression and that they'll remove that oppression by forcing the women and presumably punishing the women if they choose to wear it is really misguided.
Thanks so much. Next, let's go to Pastel.
I'd just like to point out something someone in my chat said, that, and I quote, "These women are being oppressed, so I'm going to tell them what they can and can't do to set them free." And I think that really hits home of, yes, let's try and liberate these women by telling them what they can and can't wear. That's a flawless logic. I've never seen better policy in my life, honestly. This is great. I completely agree. This is very very, very bad policy, and I think this can lead to alienation of a community, which is like probably the worst thing you could do if you're trying to like get people to like be integrated into your country, or at least like even treat them with any decent amount of respect. Alienation is so bad on like every fundamental level. So yeah, I think this is like terrible policy. It's just objectively bad. I don't think there's anything positive about this. Any country that adopts this policy, it's terrible. The legislators need to be fired. Vote them all out.
Okay, thank you. Tara?
I'm just going to mention one thing that hasn't been mentioned so far is representation and how important it is to have representation, and how banning something like a face covering makes it even more strange and creates even more, I shouldn't say strange, but you guys know what I mean, even more abnormal in society. And it makes it even more likely that people are going to have Islamophobia. It's just going to create more problems than they're trying to fix with it. And from what I understand, I cannot see any other reason other than Islamophobia for banning the face covering. I cannot understand for the life of me how it would even be justified. The article that we were given said something about potential riots at football games, but like we're wearing masks now anyway, so I don't know. I guess that argument goes out the door. Yeah, I think at the end of the day, it all comes down to Islamophobia, and it's going to create more problems than it's going to try to solve.
Um, uh, Stardust, I'm actually going to save you for last. I'll go to Eris and I'll go to you
Oh,
last.
okay.
Stardust. Oh, sorry, Eris, excuse me. Eris, you there?
Oh, sorry.
Mhm.
I didn't realize you wanted to talk to me.
Mhm.
Okay. I'm gonna take such an opposite view, and everyone's gonna hate me. I'm just wondering, do I think that these garments, particularly the niqab and the burqa, are signs of oppression? Yes. Um, I don't think it's Islamophobic, since wearing these garments are not a requirement in Islam, and it's specifically a cultural issue that exists in plenty of other religions like Orthodox Judaism, which I've been a victim of myself. So that's why I'm personally really intense with this. I think we should be discouraging the use of those garments, and I'll get into why I think they're oppressive probably later, because it'll take forever. However, I'm not sure if making them illegal is the right way to do so. I know that. I know the response is going to be, oh, let women wear what they want. But this liberal attitude also ignores the power structures and the incentive structures that exist to pressure women to be wearing these things to be seen as a marriageable, attractive, and modest. And everyone wants those things in those communities, right? In most communities. I don't buy feminist arguments that these garments are quote unquote symbols of personal freedom and diverse liberation. I don't think the history of these garments demonstrate that either. However, I think it's important to remind ourselves that this sexist tradition is not based in Muslim cultures. And it's also based in Judaism, in Zoroastrianism, in a lot of Christian ones. You know, it's rampant, these kinds of ideas. Um, there's a lot of arguments, right, that is that the reason why it's common in the areas of the Middle East has nothing to do with Islam, but with the non-Islamic histories of those regions. So I don't think that the level of liberation we demand should be limited based on where you come from or your skin color, which is kind of where I see the feminist discussion taking us. And I do think that people should be critical of the consequences of that, right? But I do want to reiterate that I'm not I'm not sure that the government making legislation on this is a good idea. I don't know if that's a great way to solve it, because like Pastel mentioned, this often just forces already oppressed women to be forced inside and even more ostracized from their community. And I would rather discourage it through education and feminist literature and integration.
So Stardust, please
I'm probably gonna monologue a little bit.
go ahead.
This is a warning in advance. Is So I am from a Muslim background, and I often call myself like a agnostic or atheist Muslim. And my family is very progressive, but not everybody has that privilege. I agree with what somebody had said earlier about incentive. Sorry, I can't speak today. Incentivizing integration. I do think that burqas and niqabs are not signs of extremism, rather signs of traditional values and cultural practices. However, I do think that they are in a way oppressive, as they are fashion practices that are really only pressured upon women and not by men in that same community. Saying I know that this is going to be a real hot take, but burqas and niqabs, they to say that they aren't oppressive in some way is incorrect to me, because even in America, in a lot of different societies, or even societal groups, this wearing a burqa or wearing a niqab is something that there's a social pressure to do, right? So although these women are making the choice to wear these things, they are still being put, they still have this pressure being put on them, right? I think that it isolates them further from the societies that they're in, right? Because it's literally a covering that covers everything except for your eyes, right? I have no problem with ones that show the face, right? But you can't communicate to me that I just feel like you can't tell me that a practice which is a fashion practice, and where women are covering everything except for their eyes, like even their mouth, the thing that they speak with, right? You can't tell me that that is not oppressive in some way, right? Because the men don't have that same societal pressure as the women
And
do.
they're so uncomfortable to wear.
And
Sorry.
well, I can't even speak on I can't speak on that, and I don't women do make the choice to put those on, but it is it's a dated cultural practice, in my opinion, right? However, with all of those points aside, I don't think that banning the burqa or the niqab is helpful in any way. I don't think that it's something that would help people integrate. I think it would. I think that it is, like somebody else said, going to isolate people further, right? The real way that you want to communicate to those communities of people is you want to help them integrate, right? Help them come out of their shells, right? And that requires, again, cultural change. And it can happen within a couple of generations, right? It will happen within a couple of generations naturally. But there, to speed up that process, you can, like, we as a group, as a society, can go out and um try to help them integrate, right? I just the whole idea of banning a way of dress is just women going from men telling them, or suggesting to them that they should wear this thing, or they won't be accepted, to another man telling them they should wear this thing or they won't be accepted, right? So it's just it's the same thing with a different label. But yeah, that's my hot take,
Uh,
basically.
well, thank you, Stardust. I'll have to say that I agree with damn near everything you just said. I thought that was really well said. My only thing is that, like, I'm always for, like, more liberation, right? So, like letting people do what they want with their bodies, right? I start with that principle.
Yeah.
So, like, it clashes here. There's a really tough one for that mindset, because it clashes. Well, if you say you want to wear it, then who might tell you not to wear it, right? And then, but on the other side, you're like, well, banning it is not like a government saying that you can't. It's just another person telling you what to do with your body, right? So yeah, I think you're exactly right. Like, it's got to be like a cultural change where you want them to, like, drop this. If you think that's a bad thing, like, give them the option to do that in a welcoming environment. But I think you really crushed it there. But Alice, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah, I actually just have a question. So, Stardust, would you say that this is something that's forced on women in these communities? Like, wearing these types of coverings, is this something that's forced, or is it more like the pressure to, like, to dress femininely that Western cultures have, where there's a
I
pretty
would
heavy
say
pressure?
yeah. I would say it's more of a pressure, right? But I would say that the pressure is much more, I feel like, heavy from within these groups, because it is the pressure from your family and pressure from a religious aspect, right? Whereas the pressure from being feminine is not necessarily religious. It's just kind of what uh it's just what it is, right? So I would say obviously like I said before, women do make the choice to put the burqa or put the niqab on, right? And that is their choice. But to say that there isn't a societal pressure um to do exactly that is kind of like missing the point, right?
Right.
There is an illusion of choice here, right? It's important to remember that um, I think someone brought up one of I call them like liberal excuse tagline propagandas. Um, Someone brought up one of those lines, which is like, it's being seen. I'm being seen for what's inside and not what's outside. That's something that I've heard regularly in my community too, as a way to excuse really oppressive garments. But that doesn't but just because women say that doesn't necessarily make it true. Because we've been brainwashed regularly and shoved with tons of propaganda with that kind of socialization that it's often a coping mechanism, right, to try to justify a lot of those things. In Orthodox Judaism, there is a tradition where, and the Jewish people here will know this, right? Where uh, where basically the groom, before the bride walks down the aisle, the groom has this big ceremony, walks into the room where the bride is, and her veil is over her head, like on the back of her head. And he takes her veil as everyone's singing and brings it to the front of her head and covers her face with the veil. Um, so the way almost all the Orthodox Jewish women that I know, I used to be so excited about this tradition. It was so beautiful, right? Because the husband is saying that he's marrying you for what's inside and not what's outside. But the real story is that the reason that's not like that might be why the rabbis are selling us that tradition now, but that's not why it exists. The reason why that law happens is because of the story of Jacob when he was trying to find in the Bible, when he was trying to find a wife, and he got married to Leah, and was given Leah accidentally. And Leah was so ugly, he didn't want to be with her, and he would much rather be with Rachel. And so it was much more about making sure that he's not being lied to and sold the wrong bride. It's a sexist tradition. And that's just the truth. And it's about the husband saying that he owns the beauty and it is no longer for other men. And that's why afterwards the woman is never allowed to show her hair. So like I know it sounds good and it feels nice to be like, oh, like everyone, these traditions are so beautiful and there's like, we can find diversity amongst them, but like we have to, it's just ignoring like the histories of where these things come from, um, and the real pressures that women are under in order to enjoy these things, right? Like the most oppression does not happen with people saying, oh, you have to do this or I'll kill you. It happens through subtle ways, through subtle propaganda, through subtle socialization. And we need to be honest about that stuff with ourselves too.
So we'll go to Pastel, Ark, then Maddie.
So I completely agree that these clothings probably do represent, or I will even like die on the hill that they probably do represent oppression. However, I would never ever ever want to pass this policy because I am like 100% sure this is just going to lead to an alienation of a community, which is like how you like it's how you bring about what people are going to consider social deviance in like in sociology and stuff, which is like not good. We shouldn't be like alienating people so that they don't feel part of society because like first off that has like huge psychological effects on people. That's just like really really bad. And it's probably not great for a society to be like, oh, we don't agree with this, let's just alienate them. Who cares? Like we'll just move the problem somewhere else. And then however they deal with it is how they deal with it. I think we should instead be attacking like the core cultural issues here instead of just banning clothing of a group and hoping that's going to like actually do anything, because it's not. It's literally going to make the only problem. You're going to make the problem only worse. 100%. This is going to be like have huge probably social ramifications for the country, and probably like 5 to 10 years. I'd be willing to bet on like everything that this is going to like make issues worse there.
I understand that, but I also think it's fair for a community to be like, considering how much traditions and attitudes get spread around the world. As I mentioned, that that idea was not, it's not a part of Islam. There's no part of Islamic law that it exists, but it got spread through culture. So I think it totally makes sense for a community to also be like, okay, I don't want that. I don't want that tradition here. I don't like it. Right.
Oh, I'd
I
agree. I
think
think
that,
it's fine to
I
do
think
that
that's
socially,
fair.
but by
So
law, I think it's
yeah.
bad.
Mhm.
But I mean,
I
the reason, and I agree with you, Pastel, but I also understand like what, um, you know, that's a pretty hard line way to go about it, and it probably does solve it, I guess, very quickly. Even though, yeah, you're right, it has other ramifications. But I understand like if you're much more worried about specifically that tradition and everything, it makes sense kind of to outlaw it.
Let's go to Ark, Maddie, Stardust, then Alice.
Yeah. This is why in my opening statements I really made very clear that like I don't know a whole lot about this. I really really appreciated Stardust's words because you kind of educated me. Um, this is also kind of why I made my point in saying like I don't know if these garments are oppressive or not, but I think that using the tactics saying that they are is a scapegoat for Islamophobia. I think that I liked what Pastel said that we need to focus on changing a culture rather than policing it, and I think it's really evident that it has nothing to do with being concerned that Muslim women are being oppressed, because if that was the case, then they wouldn't make these laws, in my opinion.
Okay, Maddie.
And first of all, I want to Eris and Stardust, just like hearing from people who have a lot more personal experience, either like being part of this culture or something that's very similar, like Orthodox Judaism. Like that, it's really powerful to hear, and it definitely has made me think a lot, and consider that maybe I hadn't been viewing things in the way that I should be. I still think, I mean, I love the points that Stardust brought up about, there's this will require a cultural change, because ultimately what we want, and what I guess is going to be what ultimately liberates Muslim women, is going to be for them to reach out outside of their like insular communities and become integrated into the culture of the country in which they live. And by putting restrictions on what they're able to wear in public spaces or anywhere else, that's just going to serve as a deterrent for them to go outside of these communities and then feel as though they're safe there. And I think um, I would imagine that the social pressures that come from being in a very insular group, those pressures are going to be felt a lot more strongly if that is the only like social interaction you have, is just with that insular group. Whereas the more you can get people to go outside of these groups, that pressure maybe that they otherwise would have felt weakens. And we've seen that a lot in the United States. If you want a blueprint for like a cultural melding pot, granted, like a lot of the cultures that like part of the melding pot, especially in the 19th century, were white and European, so it takes on a different element. But you see this convergence of these cultures where people are able to coexist and let go of some of the more repressive practices of their home countries. So, or the societies from which they came from. But I just take issue with legislating what women in particular can do with their bodies and put on their bodies. And I am interested to see what other incentives can be provided that can deliver a similar end result.
Stardust. Go ahead, Eris.
I'm sorry. I don't want to focus on pushing towards criminalization. I think that that's like, yeah, putting the cart before the horse, as I've said before. But what I really want, for me, what I want to focus on is pushing against this liberal status quo narrative that is shoved in my face. And I don't know about you guys, but it's just shoved in my face everywhere I go, that these garments are symbols of feminist empowerment. And you guys have to remember how insular a lot of these groups are. Until you've lived it, it's like you don't like. I'm telling you, they have their own dentists, they have their own television shows, like they have their own, versions of Facebook. Like they're incredibly insular, and you and like one of my closest friends in that community, um, uh, she was raped. I'm so sorry. I should have given a trigger warning. This is a content warning. But she was sexually assaulted, and she was, and afterwards, right? Her parents set up with his parents a marriage between the two, and I had to go dance at their wedding, right? Where she married her rapist. And the worst part about that whole thing was she was fucking happy about it the whole time. She told me like she was like the happiest moment of her life, right? Like here's like this woman who's like she had this incredibly traumatic experience, but she's just so happy because she's not going to be ruined, right? And she's not going to be a spinster and she's getting to be married, right? Because that is just being drilled into her head from the moment that she's born. So like this idea of like sometimes choice is an illusion, right? And I know that that can sometimes have problematic consequences, and I realize that, but I do ask people to be critical and think about the impact of propaganda and socialization on why we make these quote unquote choices. And that's not always like the be all end all. And that doesn't always mean that it's what is good for the woman is what she's choosing.
Let's go to Stardust and Alice.
I kind of lost what I was gonna say, so I'll just defer to Alice.
Alice. You're muted.
Boy, I'm so good at that. I can be muted in 3 places, and I always manage to be muted in all 3. So very good at that. I guess my question about all the I see this as like a parallel in a lot of ways to like and I'm not having like a good I feel like I'm not getting a good pushback to this, but I see this type of thing as like a parallel in a lot of ways to what like women in Western societies are expected to present themselves in a really particular way. And maybe it's because I feel that pressure somewhat stronger, maybe. Because like I am pressured to perform womanhood in a particular way, otherwise I'm, just a man. So for me, maybe it's a little different, and maybe that's why my perspective is a little skewed. But I guess I see that that kind of what Eris and Stardust have both said as being somewhat similar to that in some ways, like very performative in a lot of ways, and even if it's a really really heavy societal pressure, the societal pressure that I end up facing seems quite similar in some ways. I'm shunned, if I don't perform. I'm seen as, an other, either, just a failed man or whatever. There's like a lot of things behind that. But I feel like I see a lot of parallels, and I'm having trouble kind of rejecting those parallels. So like if someone were to try to mandate that I had to perform femininity, that would be problematic for me. And I see this type of parallel here. So maybe I'm off the mark entirely, but that's just my perspective that I'm seeing in it.
I don't think that it's an like inaccurate parallel. I think that the pressures behind it are a little bit different because there's like one is like at least like with femininity, I think we've kind of evolved in some aspects what femininity can be for a lot of people, right? Although it is still restrictive, I will say that, right? It's still pretty restrictive, but and the fact that we have to like even whether we decide to be feminine as women, right? Like we could be, I don't see why we can't have like handsome women. I've seen plenty of handsome women, and so I feel like though the pressures might the I guess the it is all about like control, right? So in that aspect it is the same driving force behind it. It's just that that I feel that the niqab and the burqa is very like it's very straightforward with what it is, and I feel at least with the way that I'm able to dress, I can express myself in some ways that a person wearing a burqa or niqab maybe might not be able to, right?
I, I mean, I will say just to level set here, and someone in
Yeah.
chat mentions this too. What
Yeah.
femininity can be has evolved for cis women, not for trans women, and I agree with that.
Uh-huh.
Like your point there, and my point kind of is like, so you're not a real Muslim if you're not wearing this type of garment. You're not a real woman because you're not presenting like femininely enough. I was literally told by like my therapist, like, why aren't you dressing like a woman? Well, what the fuck does that mean? What does
Yeah.
that mean? So, like, cis women, I think, in a lot of ways, yes, things have really progressed. But for me, I'm expected to dress a really particular way, and when I don't dress that way, I'm no longer a woman. Now I'm just a failed man or whatever. Like, I dress very androgynously. This is probably the most feminine you'll see me on this stream. Like, I've worn like ridiculous things here that are super androgynous, and I will get shit on for them if people think that I'm trans.
Yeah.
Like if people know that I'm trans. So
Yeah.
I guess that's why I see a parallel more than I think you see a parallel.
Yeah.
Because presume me for being, whoa, forgive me for being presumptive, but I think you're cis. So I don't know that if
Yeah,
I'm
I
right
don't
about
have
that.
your experience. Yeah,
Yeah.
see, that's like that's a perspective that I wouldn't have the background to, and it certainly sounds very very oppressive as well. So I guess I see the parallel that you're drawing, and definitely when you explain it that way, I can see it like that for sure.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I'm sorry. I just want to say I'm just having trouble. Like that parallel that I see is just so strong that it's hard for me to like to say that this could ever be positive. And not that anybody here is necessarily saying like this ban is positive. I think we're all pretty much on the same page. Like, yes, it's oppressive, but no, this ban would not be positive. I think we're all on the same page there.
Yeah.
I'm seeing
Are
it the
we
same
on the
way.
same page that it's oppressive? Because it feels like, I don't know, I live in like a
Yeah.
super left, like super liberal, like SJW-ish, I don't know what right terms to use, community, because I don't want to say leftist, right? Because very few of them are socialists. And like, yeah, if I said this shit, I don't know, like it feels like I would get fired. Like,
So, Eris,
yeah.
yeah, I can understand what you're saying, and I see it on social media all the time where people try to claim that these things aren't oppressive, and to them they don't have the perspective, I guess, that to really see in the history to really see how it is, right? And I think a lot of it is a lot of people are trying to be as accepting as possible and trying to
Yeah, they don't want to be racist, and I think they see it.
they don't want to be racist, right? And again, I will say, like, the burqa and the niqab is not a sign of extremism by any means. It's just a dated cultural practice, right? So I would say that like marketing it as like stop extremism is definitely like a very race.
Yeah, that's a really stupid.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
a stupid tagline, and again, it is happening right now, like in the United States with plenty of non-Muslim populations where women are forced to cover their hair, their arms, their ankles, and pressure to do that kind of thing, and plenty of other incredibly oppressive stuff. Yeah, and I would encourage people to look up what's going on. I mean, if you live in New York, the shit happens probably within 20 minutes of you, where women are forced to marry their rapists. Like, and they're allowed to get away with this shit by, I guess, saying that, it's their religious freedom and shit, but it's not. I'm Jewish and it's not. And yeah, I encourage people to look up this shit. Watch, there's some amazing documentaries on it on Netflix called like another Unorthodox, like things like that. And yeah, these communities can be really fucked, and I just wish more people were trying to advocate for stopping it, like especially when it's within their own community, with their own country.
So, Eris. So, first of all, I'm like very anti-religious, and I think anyone who watches this this channel knows I'm not a fan at all of any of this stuff. But my only problem is like, because I hear what you're saying, like what happened with your friend, which was just horrific, right? But that in terms of looking at this, like, so that's one thing, that's one tragedy that religion has brought upon the world, another reason to get rid of it, period. But with the burqa and the head covering, and the other head coverings, similar head coverings, right? It seems like I don't know if I'm formatting my thoughts properly here, but I don't want to. I would never want to put myself in someone else's shoes, right? And like tell them you are being impressed, right? Like I'm in your head, and I know that like despite what you're telling me, that despite whatever you're saying, like I
Yeah.
know better than you that this is actually not your choice, right?
Yeah, it feels like you're infantilizing them.
Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly that.
Yeah.
And so I would never want to do that. So that's my hesitancy here, right? Is that like if because I again I'm always more on the side of freedom, right? And more choice, especially more choice what you want to do with your body, right? So if a woman is telling me, it's like in other choices, in other parts of life, like we're arguing about something else here, right? I can see us replacing these words with something else, and then it's like, well, why wouldn't you believe a woman? A woman is telling you, like, this is her feelings, this is her thoughts, these are her emotions, right? Then you overriding them, like we will be rejecting that notion there, right? So I don't want to make a special exception for that. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I understand, and I think socially it like can be really rude. Like I have plenty of friends that wear hijabs, and I have plenty of friends that are still Orthodox Jews. And I respect their right to yeah, to live that life and everything like that. But um it it's still, I think that there could be other ways that you can try to impact it. I think like yeah, encouraging education and literature, particularly in the Orthodox Jewish community. Some of the community has really educates the women well, and there are portions of the community that don't even teach them basic math. So I think encouraging at least that kind of stuff in the more extreme sides. Um, but I don't know. It goes back to one of our first initial disagreements, Prime, where you said that about how important someone's lived experience was. And I said, like, I think socially, like for my friends on a personal level, yeah, I'm always going to respect someone's personal live experience. But when we're talking about like really important issues for a large group of people, I don't think that that's the necessarily the most valid, because sometimes someone's lived experience can be an experience of propaganda and socialization and brainwashing. And I know it seems infantilizing, but I think that that's a consequence not of what you're doing, but of how we view being brainwashed, how we view being having propaganda pushed down our throats and being socialized. We see it as a pathetic, childlike thing. And the truth is, like, no matter how fucking strong you are, human beings are social creatures. If you're raised in that environment, that's what's going to happen. Um, and I don't think it means that, you know, you're a child or you're less strong. Yeah, human beings are just social creatures, and I think if we got rid of that stigma, we wouldn't feel like we were infantilizing people by yeah, by at least bringing up criticism. So I would say, like, don't say, oh, you're being oppressed, right? But just ask questions about, like, what's the history of the hijab, what's the history of where these ideas come from. So at least if they still decide to that they still want to be wearing it, they're actively making sure that they're not participating at least in that history and that trope, and they're using it, you know, for whatever their own reasons.
Hmm.
But yeah, I don't think there's a right answer to go about it. It's a tough issue.
Yeah.
I have a question for Eris at Stardust. Multiple people brought it up. I think Dr. K was the first one that did so. Do you believe that this kind of attitude of you're being oppressed or we're going to try to save you, do you think that pushes people away from wanting to
I don't think I said that.
Oh, I thought you did. I thought you said that legislation would push people away from integrating.
Yes, but I did not phrase it that way. But
okay, my bad. I was just asking. Yeah, do you think that this stuff pushes people away?
Yeah, I actually agree with that. I don't think that there should be a law dictating how anybody should dress, right? I think that that's like incredibly like insensitive and oppressive, and just like the government shouldn't even be involved in that, right? My only point of what I was saying was that like to say that that these things aren't oppressive is not necessarily true, because they're, you know, based in they're based in like old dated practices, and they're not really based in the religion itself. The religion only says that women have to be covered, which is like you know, like give your woman clothes, you know. um but
Bikini is sufficient.
it's I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Like what there are people, you know, people argue over verses every day, right? Yeah, my entire thing is like I don't think there should be a law telling people what they can and what they can't wear. I think that when it comes to these things that we see as like dated, right? We still see other cultural practices that are dated, and the best thing that we can do is try to reach out to those people and embrace those people, and maybe they will be inspired, or their children will be inspired to um, uh, kind of blend in a little bit more with the rest of us, right? Like come out of
Right.
their shells a little bit more. Yeah.
Because
So
I
I
think
guess
not calling it. Oh, sorry.
yeah, I guess like I really love the last part of the question that was sent to us is this what helping Muslim people looks like? Because it sounds like to me that Eris and Star, you might be saying that like viewing this as oppressive, or listening to Muslim women when they say yes, this is oppressive, is helpful, but legislation is not. So, and I might be wrong on that.
I think I agree with that. And even if there are women who say like, "Oh no, this is my choice" and all of that, I wouldn't even push back on them for that, right? Because in their opinion, that's what they grew up with, that's what they were, um, uh, pressured to do. And in some way, I'm sure they did find a way to find some sort of like empowerment inside them, right? To kind of like cope with that, right? And I guess that's valid in a way. It's still a culturally dated practice, right? And I wouldn't push on them. If that's what they really want to do, then that's what they want to do, right? But it's just about, you know, reaching out and you know, being accepting and having these people as part of your community and things like that. So
It's safe to say, like talking about this issue is people are gonna call you the annoying rad femme in the room. And like people might call you names or whatever. Um and or they might get annoyed with you, or they say that you're infantilizing women by acting like their choices don't mean anything. When, like, as I mentioned, right, all you have to do is read. I mean, there's so many amazing books by this, but just like even something like Chomsky on the manufacturing of choice. The like Yeah, a lot of times choice is an illusion, especially yeah, especially in our current society. And the truth is that swallowing that pill sucks, right? Like thinking we all like to think we have control over our lives. We all like to think we're these rational actors making these free choices. Um, and it's just very rare. Um, Dancing and saying, well, thank God TERFs don't get to own radical feminism. Um, Radical feminism is for everyone, except for misogynists. so, um, but yeah, it's a lot of people don't like swallowing that pill. It sucks. Like I know I used to buy into all of this stuff. I lived that Orthodox Jewish lifestyle, and I loved it when I was doing it for a while. And it was only when I got deeper and deeper and I saw like the effects of, oh yeah, I want 10 kids. Like, I want 10 plus kids. That's so beautiful. What, like me working with God to create more life. That's so amazing. And then I saw the effects of what that actually does to women, what that does to women physically, who ends up having to take care of those kids, and the psychological like later effects of that. there are just so many things that we use this liberal excuse to justify, but if you look into the reality and you look into like the history of where these things come from, they're still really about that. And I do think when it comes to coverings, at their core, they're about seeing, and I think Leia mentioned this, they're about seeing women as property. And this is why this is not something, men are supposed to be modest too in Islam and Judaism and Christianity, but there's a reason why men don't have to wear those things in a lot of these cultures, because women are seen as property and beauty is seen as something to be owned by a man, right? That you can like, you can own if you get to marry them, etc. And yeah, so I would encourage people to read that kind of ideas about the illusion of choice.
So let's go to Dr. K. I thought I want to have a question I want to ask you all, but go ahead, Dr. K.
Yeah, I mean, whenever you engage with an organization, whether it be an extremist ideology, a cult, whatever, and it wants to cut off your connection from the outside world, the essential goal is to limit, your contact with others, right? And so anything that, if you are trying, if an ideology, if a cult, whatever, is trying to keep you hooked in, it tries to limit your contact to the outside world. And so policy that essentially would reinforce that sort of behavior is going to essentially, allow for the proliferation and the sort of othering of these two groups, and it just sort of creates polarization, right? Whereas if you encourage the engagement with the outside world, you get this integration over time, right? And most Jewish people in the U.S. don't follow this sort of thing, and it perfectly coincides with the fact that Jewish people are, on the whole, pretty well integrated into the U.S. experience, right? Like,
Sure, but Orthodox Jews are growing in number because they just have more children too. So I don't know. Like, I don't know if that counters that as well.
I mean, every group is technically growing in numbers all the time.
No, but I mean like per capita, like per their stat in general. A lot of these communities encourage more children, so they are growing too.
And as these children are, if these children are able to engage with the outside world, many of them will, sort of drop the more socially ostracizable behavior.
That's if they're allowed to engage with the outside world.
Exactly, which is why, we need to make sure that people who are within these groups are able to engage with the outside world to the fullest extent possible.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep, true.
So
I agree with that, and I think education is paramount.
So to first of all, to Maddie, you had said previously about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that a big deal hadn't been made of like the burkini. Apparently in France, in some localities, they actually did ban the burkini. That was like a thing that happened. So I just wanted to put that out there. Like, yeah, people did make a big deal about everything that Muslim women do. And two, I'm definitely agreeing on most of what I'm hearing here, because I think that I think I could see how if in Switzerland like they ban the burqa, then it becomes a symbol of culture, right? Like, I'm taking back my my history by wearing this, so I could definitely see that being like the response. But on the other side of that, there's I think, so what we have here in this country, right? We have Mormons, and some Mormons, like the women, like dressed in that like frontier outfit. You know what I'm talking about, right? That like head to toe, like sleeve all the way down, like full skirt outfit. And I imagine, maybe someone will think differently, that that is like the equivalent of like a burqa, right? Like, to cover their bodies, to in a more shapeless type of thing, and to not tempt men. It sounds to me like a very similar thing, but like, it's not like we don't have, there hasn't been the kind of pressure against that lifestyle and those choices, right? Those that kind of dress here in the States, and like it doesn't seem like there's been any movement for that to disappear, that type of culture to disappear. So would it take some some sort of stronger intervention to do that, to allow women to dress how they want, right? Or to move away from that life, because along with like the frontier outfit, right? There's a whole lifestyle that surrounds it. So to get people out of that, like, would we actually have to take a firmer stance? Because so far, I mean, like it persists. It's been persisting for a very long time. So, how will we, like, just like with the burqa, if we actually wanted to make progress on this, right? Society thought, or communities thought that this is something that should end, then what would be the solution?
I think governments in like I you should always be encouraging communities to not be insular, and there should be some kind of incentive structure. I don't know if it'd be positive or negative, to encourage them to integrate at least in certain ways. Um, in Canada, we do this thing instead of like a melting pot. We have like multiculturalism where we all share our cultures with one another. But but yeah, one of the consequences of that is that people often still don't really leave their cultures, and they become very insulated within them. In the Orthodox Jewish community, one of the big problems is education. Is that most of these people who are in these communities go to their own schools, they go to their own doctors, they in New York, they're often allowed to even prosecute rape themselves and all this stuff. Um, and Yeah, that is really shitty, and that just takes away that choice even more so, right? Because the impression of most of the women in that community is that if they leave, it's just a world where everyone's getting um, you know, raped and doing drugs, and that's like, yeah, that's their vision of the outside world. They really don't know what it's genuinely like. Um, and some of them don't even know how to speak English. A lot of them only speak Yiddish. Some of them can't even do basic math. And I'm sure that this is true. I know this isn't a big problem for the Muslim community in the United States, but it is for for certain Christian sects and Jewish sects too. So I think um, at least doing some kind of legislation and not saying that you have like the freedom to just send your kid to not give them any kind of basic education is yeah, I think that's really dumb that you can do that in the US.
Hmm. Anyone else?
I think the only way we're going to stop this is if we limit religious indoctrination from children. I honestly think that's the only way we're going to be able to stop it, because these children are socialized. Their brain is completely warped at such a young age that, they have to be this certain way to be accepted by everyone around them. I don't see any other way to stop it.
Anyone else? Okay.
I think just oh, sorry,
Stardust, please.
just education is incredibly useful. I think requiring education. I know it's government intervention. I'm not like super into government intervention, but I guess maybe not requiring, but it's still like
What
I
does
don't
that
know.
mean?
I
What
guess
does that education mean? Like, what would we be teaching them?
just like everybody, a big part of socialization growing up is going to school, right? Things like that, like public school. And I don't know, I don't know, I don't know, actually, maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think education does tend to
Well, yeah, you
help.
have to understand these people are going to their own
Yeah.
schools.
Yeah.
They're not meeting people
Yeah.
that are outside of the community on a regular basis.
But
Yeah, I'm not really talking about like the people that that you encounter that like are wearing a niqab at school. Although I feel like that's probably really rare. Um, I suspect that those people
Yeah.
are usually always going to their own schools.
so you
I don't know.
oh, go ahead, please.
Sorry. I don't know at what age they start wearing that. I know wearing the hijab
Nine.
is yeah, I know the hijab I've seen is much more common, like people wear, and that one you can easily integrate, I feel like, and Um, yeah.
So my problem. I see your hand, Pastel. My problem is with just education. I'm not trying to criticize you. You know, I'm just like exploring this idea with you.
Yeah.
Is that like so like I think what was said, like Muslim communities are, as far as I know, in a different situation in that like they live in a more like integrated society, like across the states, like they're just like scattered
In the States, very-
without scattered throughout the
Yeah.
populace, in the states, right? So I'm just talking about
Yeah.
the states right now for solutions.
Okay.
But they're more scattered about the populace, right? And so like they do, for instance, like go to like regular public schools. There are some more
Yeah.
like Muslim enclaves that I've heard of, like more like concentrated Muslim enclaves in the states, like I think like in Michigan or something. Like so those do exist, but like for the most part, they're not like with the Jewish Orthodox Jewish enclaves that Eros is bringing up, and they're not like the Mormon enclaves. And on those ends, like the Mormons, like I was reading about this town, this Mormon town, right? Is that like they have like complete control of like the government, like the local government, because they just make up so much of the population, right? So they have complete control, and they
That's
just
what
kind of
grounds of
run it how they
democracy.
want. So like even there, like let's say like okay, well everyone has to go to public school, right, and not your own school. Well, they own the school board. So at that point, I don't know. That would be that helpful, and I think you might find something similar within Orthodox Jewish communities. That I mean, there's just so many of them there, and like they I think oftentimes they're prominent members of the communities, right? So they'd have control of the local authorities, right? So
Yeah.
even public education.
It's
would be-
important to distinguish between also the Muslim communities of the United States and the Muslim communities of Europe. And I also don't even want to group all of the Muslim communities of Europe together. So yeah, there's been a bit of a response there. I know that I don't live in Europe and I'm not Muslim, but I have a very close Muslim friend, and she's from Afghanistan originally, and but she lives in Canada, and she tells me that like that when she goes and visits her family in Europe, it is literally like it is like going back to not even Afghanistan now, but Afghanistan 20 years ago. That is often how it feels with the community that she lives in. So obviously that wouldn't apply to all Muslim communities. It might just be that one. But I know that just like there's just a tendency like um that there's going to be different communities that have their own interpretations. And yeah, as I mentioned, Islam is a huge category, and there's very different ways to interpret certain rules. So yeah, like the Muslim communities you're going to meet here are going to be very different than the ones in Europe.
Pastel.
Yeah, so I think like seeing social change probably regulating somewhat of like what education has to provide in these closed communities might be a good way, or I think would 100% be an effective way, but also just um attacking again the sole like the core cultural like motivations behind these certain traditions. I mean, over time will bring change. I think regulating any law, while will probably 100% will bring like an on the surface level faster change, I do think it's just a much larger detriment to the actual society that does it. I don't think any like law regulations of like religious clothing or anything like that or religious practices is going to bring about good social changes in the long run.
So, if there's nothing else in this, move on to the next topic then.
Can you have me go last? I have to feed my dog.
Sure, no problem. Okay. So, topic. Topic. Oh, sorry. I'm looking at the freaking wrong thing. I'm sorry. Topic 2. A recent study of more than 600 bisexual women found out that when bisexual women are in a relationship with a straight cisgendered man, they are far less likely to open up or be out with their bisexuality. This is in contrast to the women who were in a relationship with a cisgender lesbian women, bisexual cisgender women partners, and bisexual cisgender men, which is a lot. Sorry. A lot to keep track of there. But anyone but a cisgender straight man, that's basically, who were much more open and out about their bisexuality. So let me state that again. So bisexual women, when they're with a straight cisgender man, they're much less likely to be open than they are with being with anyone else. Why are women less open about their sexuality when in heterosexual relationships, even if it is causing strain on their mental health? Do you think some of the women in non-heteronormative relationships are just more open because they feel safer? Or do you think that some of the women might feel some pressure to identify a certain way when in a non-heteronormative relationship than when in a non-heteronormative relationship? Does being a heterosexual relationship as a bisexual have the ability to erase women's bisexuality? Okay, that was a lot, sorry. But I think you got it. All right, so let's try it. Let's go to Alice.
I did it again, but I muted myself in a different spot this time. So I actually have a partner. I have a girlfriend. We've been together 7 years. Before I came out, she's always been bisexual. This is not a new thing, and this is something that she said. But people would always question her. Well, are you really bisexual? You're with a man. So how do we know? And I definitely think that has something to do with it. Is that like if you're in a relationship, she's over there like grinning at me. Yeah, but it's definitely a matter of like that when you say that you are bisexual and you're in a relationship with someone who's presumably a heterosexual male, you're not really very incentivized to come out. You're going to be questioned by everybody you know. The person that you're with is maybe not going to be super comfortable or might fetishize you. I just think there's like a lot of question marks for somebody who's coming out like that. Even now, like it's still a question mark for her. Like, well, are you really bi? Because like, you're with a trans. So it's definitely a big question
I love your
mark.
voice.
That's my sarcastic voice for that type of thing. But yeah, I definitely think it's a matter of safety and a matter of whether you're going to actually be accepted for who you are when you say that you are. When you're a woman with a heterosexual male, you're just seen as straight, and when you come out as bi, you're not affirmed or like taken as, oh yeah, I felt like that. You're just like, well, but really, because like you seem to like dick well enough. So it's just not very well. It's just not very well treated, I think. So yeah, I think that's it for me.
It sounds like very nice, reasonable people who would say that. Like very nice people
Yeah,
I'd
I
like to
wish.
be friends with, I think.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Dr. K.
I mean, yeah, social pressures exist. Like, you are, more likely to identify with something that is, in line with the situation you find yourself in. Sure enough. I don't know. Everything seems pretty ship shape with this topic. Like, yeah.
Okay, Ark.
Sure. I love this topic because I am a bisexual woman that has been married to a heterosexual man for 4-year anniversary is coming up in May. Yay! Yeah. I really think that two things. Like I think I'm sorry, Alice, you got everything right. I just want to expand on two things. In my experience, when I come out as bisexual to men that I've been in relationships with, there's this fetishization that goes on, and there's this assumption that you're going to be in an open relationship or that you want monogamy. Like there's this weird assumption with bisexual women that when you like say like, hey, I'm bisexual, it's like, oh, well then we have threesome. It's like, well, no. like it, just because I'm bisexual doesn't mean that I'm polyamorous or want an open relationship. And I think that a lot of women who are bisexual fear this fetishization or this assumption that you can't live without the pussy. It's like no, like I'm perfectly capable of being monogamous trust. So I think that it's this idea of like a lot of women are like, hey, I just don't want to go through all that bullshit. I don't want to deal with it. If I'm in a heterosexual relationship, I'll just keep it quiet. I'm not one of those type of women, but I can understand that feeling and that fear and not wanting to go through that.
You are a treasure, Arc. Thank you so much for being here. Maddie, please.
So I'm also a bisexual woman, and I find, yeah, there are a few different reasons why I think, and I'm now engaged to a heterosexual man, and there are some people I think like I've had where I tell them like, oh yeah, I've dated women in the past, where the question then becomes, or I say, oh I'm actually bi, and they say like, oh, but like, are you really bi, or like, did you just go through something in college? And it's really insulting, and I think sometimes you just, and I get that, people, a lot of other people who are LGBTQ plus, like, we just get sick of having to explain it, and it is easier to just not talk about it. I've been trying to make a point, especially on social media and like here streaming, to be more open about my bisexuality, because like I want to normalize it, because it's, there's the whole thing about being bisexual. It's like, oh yes, but then why are you dating a man? It's like, well, because turns out bisexuals are attracted to both. So
It's funny how that works.
Yeah. that happens. So but it can just get exhausting to have to like explain that and justify it, or having people immediately doubt the validity of your own sexual identity. And again, like, I say this as someone who's like a cis woman, like straight presenting, whatever. And so I can't even imagine, like, for people that don't have the benefit of those privileges, like it's got to be even more frustrating. So that's at least how it's been for me. And then, yeah, of course, there's like the fetishization where they think if you're bi, you're immediately, it's like the equivalent of proposing a threesome, which is absurd.
I feel like you gotta be like Schrodinger's, like bisexual, right? Like in a state where you were both, like to actually prove it. But
That's right.
That is the best thing I've ever heard from. I love it.
Schrodinger's bisexual.
Let's go.
I mean,
Pastel.
yeah, they're
Sorry, we'll finish the introduction, so we'll jump into it. Pastel?
So I'm just going to meme a very little, okay? I used to like date some men, and I still will now, but like, I don't know. It's hard being a trans girl and being a bisexual with all the like fetishization out there. So at this point, like, most guys off the table, okay? And you know what? This research paper that I read on this article has just sealed the deal, okay? This is empirically proven that women are just better than men whenever it comes to relationships for me, alright? And you know what? That's my take. I am dying on this hill.
We have the data.
For science.
Tara Supernova?
I mean, that's not a bad hill to die on, but yeah. So
True.
I find with women who are bisexual, we kind of get it from both sides too. Because if you're in a heterosexual relationship, then you have the not believing your bisexuality from other people. Also, sometimes the partner you're with, as well as being fetishized. And then also, if you're dating women, I'm not sure if anyone's aware, but in the lesbian community, there's actually a really weird stigma around bisexual women, and expecting to always go back to the penis. It's like the penis is there's just like a magnetic force, and you're always going to end up with a guy if you're bisexual. And
yeah, you're on vacation to Pussy Island, but your main homeland is Dickland. Yeah,
exactly. Like, it's so strange to me, so strange. And there's also the one thing that we haven't really mentioned. There's a lot of fucking homophobia. Personally, I've dated a homophobe, and I'm pansexual. I did not come out to them, and it's very difficult to deal with. So it's just like, no wonder people don't come out. I don't blame anyone. You know.
Stardust?
So yeah, I find it very interesting because in the 90s, and in the early 2000s, it was that bisexual people don't exist, just choose one, right? There's the whole bisexual erasure thing. Then now it's like, oh, bisexuals just want threesomes or things like that, right? There are all these it keeps evolving these stereotypes that are incorrect. And I think it's interesting to see also these relationships and this this phenomena of like heteronormativity, because if you look at there are other studies that have come out that show that women tend to still do majority of like the domestic work within the house, right? So the relationships, at least within heterosexual relationships, it's the give and take as far as like as far as like having a balanced home life is not really, it's still not there, right? So I think it would be interesting to look at like things like there's different theories around domestic work and the sharing of domestic responsibilities, and how that might play into like um bisexual relationships, right? And see how that, but beyond that, it sucks to see how these stereotypes just keep evolving and they're all stupid. So
Eris?
Um, I feel really called out by this question because I'm bisexual, but I'm not out to everyone. And I've always told myself that only if I was in a serious relationship I was gonna go fully out. Like if I was in a serious relationship with a woman. Um, and I think that like is that problematic? Yeah. um, but there's a lot of problematic things about just living your life in the most, I guess, efficiently happy way possible, I guess. Um, and for me, like it would just cause coming out really sucks for a lot of people. Um, and as I mentioned, I have like a lot of very religious family, and yeah, like that just it's like I'm only gonna cross that bridge if I really need to cross it. So I feel like, and I don't know if other bisexual women feel like that, where I feel like I kind of have the privilege um, of not having to come out, if that makes sense. I don't know if that's a really bad thing to say, but yeah, like I feel like in some ways we're always talking about the oppression of bisexual people, and I agree with those things, but I do think yeah, there is a privilege that comes with being bisexual, in that you do kind of get to choose if you can, like you can choose the more convenient option sometimes, like on like who you're, at least who you're dating. You don't get to choose who you're attracted to, but at least who you're dating, um and in serious relationships with, and um yeah, so it just ends up being easier that uh yeah, that like I don't if I've mostly been in serious relationships with men, so I've just never had to go for the full come out session. So yeah, there is some privilege, I think, that like most gay people, like I mean, just to live you basically have to come out, and bisexual people don't often have to do that. Which yeah, is a nice privilege for us. The other thing that I'll say um is that I there is also an anxiety with uh, like feeling like you're taking on someone else's like oppression. I especially if you're in a hetero relationship, um, and you're benefiting from all the privileges that come with that. Um, like visually, like no one's gonna like roll their eyes at you when you hold hands on the street. People are gonna, you're never questioning if you could get you know, if you can adopt together in that state or like anything like that. There are privileges that come along with that. So so like there is an anxiety that like if that's a lived experience and you're not really living it, just feeling it, um then yeah, you're anxious if like that, yeah, you're kind of like appropriating someone else's oppression. I'm not saying that's the right thing to feel. I think that that's just an anxiety that a lot of bisexual women feel, including myself.
Hmm. Open to panel. Alice, you had your hand up.
Yeah, sorry. So, just from the not cis woman perspective, so I came out as bi to a partner of mine that was a woman before I was out. And immediately the response to that was, "Oh, so you're gay then? You like men?" No, I'm bi. I'm currently dating you, a woman, but I like dick as well. That's the discussion here. The discussion is not, I'm going to go over there. The discussion is, by the way, this is something really deep about. So, like, my my perspective on that is that, like, there's like somebody mentioned this, like, fucking rampant homophobia, like, for everybody involved in this. You come out as bi, no matter what your gender identity is, and you're gonna get some sort of shittiness. So, like, pre-transition, the shittiness for me was, oh, so you're just gay then. And post-transition, when I come out as bi, or when my partner came out as bi, people are just like, oh, so you like dick then? Like, it's
It always seems to come back to the dick for some reason. If you're a bi woman, dick. If you're a bi man, dick.
Like, as if we can't buy dick at a store, right?
Seriously, I have a dick in a drawer.
Yeah,
you know?
and
It's
that one doesn't get soft ever. Like,
Oh.
never. It never gets soft, right? You can keep
And some
going.
of them are you can plug it in. Some of
Yeah, they
them
can
are
get-
electric. Like,
You
come
can
on.
choose
Some
your
of them you
own
can
color.
share too. They're
Objectively
You have a
double-sided.
glittery pink one.
I love you all. This is
Any
amazing.
size you want, like, just objectively better.
Yeah.
Right?
You are all my favorite.
The
Men are
dude, the
just,
double
like, flattering themselves a little too much, like as if your dick has any fucking power to like dickmatize anyone. Like, not in this economy. I'm sorry.
Not in this economy.
Not
mean-
in this economy.
Hilarious.
Look,
There's one thing
you and the
capitalism gave
phone.
us. It was
Dick.
lots of dicks. Lots
Yeah.
of dicks.
I do
give
wanna-
that baby.
I do want to say something that like Eris, I think that you just kind of blew my mind a little bit in the point that you made that bisexuals have kind of like the choice, or like that there's like, I don't know, like it like, just to me, I was like, maybe that's why like there is this weird thing with the gay people, like gay people not liking bi people, and like, well, you get to choose to have a heterosexual relationship. I don't get
Yeah,
to
I
choose
think
who I'm
there's
attracted
like a
to.
resentment there. Yeah, and I understand the resentment. Not saying it's okay, but at least I understand it, because I think it's important to approach the shit from compassion. Because from a lot of lesbians' perspectives, statistically, most bisexual women, because of, sorry, not bisexual. I meant I meant heterosexual women. Most heterosexual women, because oh my god, I'm having a brain fart. Bisexual women. For some reason, I thought I said biological women. I was like, God damn. Most bisexual women end up in like being married to heterosexual men. So there is like, yeah. So that's just like, I mean, that's just like a stat. Like, that's just a reality. And I think that reality probably has to do with exactly what I said, that like it's just easier. There's just a lot of things that are just easier about being in a heterosexual relationship because of our homophobic society. So if you've got like the choice to you end up just, I guess, leaning towards that. So I understand why lesbians feel that way, because oh no, Will, I swear it's not true. I do think that I understand why lesbians feel that way, because I mean, it's no secret that in the lesbian community, being in serious relationships is a really big deal, and yeah, they don't want like their heart being played with, and everyone's worried about getting hurt, and yeah, and the anxiety that like you're not really in it for the long haul. I think it, is it bigoted? Yeah, but I also understand. I understand it
Like
too.
being worried
Right.
that someone's a lug, right? Was it lesbian till graduation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, just saying that it's all like, yeah,
Mm.
it's just like it's just pure biphobia. It's like a lot of the stuff is based in at least some kinds of reality too. And I'm sure it really fucking sucks for lesbians, like yeah, for what they go through in those situations too.
There's been a person here in chat that I know. Her name's erotically robotic, goddess robotic. Anyway, hey girl. And she brings up this point. isn't it your responsibility as the person that wants to be understood to help the person you care for understand and give them that space to feel it with you? So I think that like what we're talking about here, a lot of it is like this overwhelming anxiety look at it. But when it comes to interpersonal relationships, you have to crack down that shit, right? Like, because if you really care about like being truly in, like if I as a bisexual woman, my husband got hit by lightning and I fall in love with a woman and she has anxieties about that, true anxieties that come from a real place, I need to be able to sit down and discuss that with her without calling her a bigot.
What this debate reminds me of is within the African American community, like the controversies of like being black but being white passing, right? And like the privileges that go along with that, because this not a secret that
It's exactly like that.
yeah, some of the people who are white passing like will do that. They'll live undercover. They'll deny their heritage, right? Because it's just easier, right? They're gonna have an easier life. Your kids are gonna have an easier life. If you're just quiet about it, right? And so like you reminded me, Eris, when you said like taking on like quote unquote other people's like oppression, the struggle. Well, I could be out there with everyone else, fighting for equality, right? And like standing up to like the personal bigotry like that happens around me, right? Like because like there'll be like white passing individuals in the room where like white people go mask off, right? And then they don't say anything, right? So that's like
Would
but
you be okay with them doing it if they still went to BLM protests? They still were fighting for Black rights, but but aside from that, they weren't identifying as being Black, or yeah, they were kind of like not out about it. I don't know, right? What the right way to say is.
it's that's a tough question. One, I guess I'm not about like running other people's lives, you know. But like I can also understand that like so for instance in the scenario that I painted, right, where like that your people are performing that bigotry around you and you don't interject, that would be where I have a problem with it, right? Like if you actually aren't like taking a stand with the people that you can make the biggest difference with, right? Because protests are good, demonstrations are good and all that, right? But like for instance, in my own life, I have family members who have been quite like anti-gay, right? And I have had very personal battles with them, very long battles. Every time I hear it from them, to let them know that this is not okay, this is not acceptable, you need to change, right? And I've actually made progress on that. But I had the ability to do that because of my relationship with them, right? And so, like, if there was a white passing African American within like a white group, and then that bigotry happened and didn't actually do anything, then like I feel like then everything else, even going to those BLM protests, is much just performative, right? You could act like you're all those like other well-meaning white people who came there, right? Who may have cared, but once it costs you anything, right? Meaning your social capital. The moment it is actually costing you something to take a stand, and you're not, well, then I know what kind of person you actually are. I hope that makes sense.
No, I think that's so true, and I think that you're really courageous for doing that stuff. It is the hardest thing in the world, is to stand up to your family and your friends, the people that you know. That is like the scariest shit. That is the one thing J.K. Rowling was right about with her book. But yeah, I think that that's really courageous. It's just yeah, those things are just easier said than done. And yeah, it's definitely like for me, I guess like my focus has always been, I try as much to convince people about LGBT rights, and try to be supportive as much as I can. Um but yeah, with the coming out thing, it's one thing to be advocating for another thing, it's another thing to be taking the hits yourself. Um and living with the severe consequences of that, of like people not showing up to your wedding, people in Judaism, in Orthodox Judaism, people literally sit shiva, which means they mourn for your death for 7 days. So like those are real, also like real consequences for a lot of people for coming out. So yeah, so I don't like, yeah, so it's sometimes like, I don't know, it's a tough issue.
Yeah, I think that I wish more bi people would come out, but I understand. But I do think that it is kind of like if you're standing there and you're seeing something happen and you don't speak up,
Hmm.
I don't know about that. And even because like, and for me too, like I originally came out as a lesbian. I thought I was a lesbian at first.
Yeah.
My parents literally had me go to therapy because which was why I kind of even though I thought the first topic we probably would have circle jerked around it, I really liked that topic because yeah, this issue of like homosexuality being something that like, oh my god, there's something wrong with you still exists today. I mean, I'm a boomer for internet age. I'm 32, but it wasn't that long ago, you know. So I really think that a lot of maybe bisexual people don't understand if they don't come out, they can't experience that suffrage and can't stand by as well.
Yeah, and I think it's a good reminder, especially with like what Prime said, like really hit me, like that sometimes your inaction can also speak volumes. And even though I think it's understandable, like why I haven't come out, I do think that me not coming out is still perpetuating a problem that, and like that I hate. So I'm kind of, I'm still being a part of that problem. Um, and so like I think that that's, yeah, that's an important reminder. Um, in Jewish culture, we're always taught that the real villains in the Holocaust weren't the Nazis. It was all the Germans who knew it was wrong and didn't stand up, and didn't do anything about it. And I think that that's yeah, that's an important value that like we all like need to remind ourselves to just be more active, and yeah, and sometimes take those hits as hard as they can be, right? To be thinking about to put your money where your mouth is sometimes.
So I want to be clear about what I said, Eris. Is that okay? Some people would look at you, right, and saying that you not being out is you playing into the problem, right? I'm not one of those people. I want to make that very clear. What I
Okay, yeah, I didn't think you were saying that.
Okay, sure, sure. I think that like I don't want to run your life. I don't want to run anyone else's life. You know what's best for you. So like, there's that. But I would say that it's the same thing that people we say in Left of Space all the time, right? Like use your privilege like for good, right? Like if you're in a place of privilege, then like I use it. So like going back to that scenario I painted, right? That white passing African American in that group of white people, like their family members who might be going mask off. Like I'm not telling them like their stepfather or something, I'm not telling them to like reveal they are their heritage or anything like that. I'm saying that you should confront that. You should actually say something, right? Like shame them, or maybe if not, if you don't think shame will work, then like ask them questions or something. Like use your point of privilege to actually make a difference, right? But if you feel for whatever reason that you want to be undercover, right, then that's your business. But like once you let that bigotry go by, then that's like society's business, because that'll be perpetuated outside of the household. If you're not confronting it, then if they feel safe there, they're gonna be feeling safe somewhere else to do it. So you got to confront it. Does that make sense?
Another reason, I thought of another reason actually why I think a lot of bisexual women who are in heterosexual relationships are not out, is just in general, they don't they don't feel like the need to come out because a lot of bisexual women just do not date as many women. They don't have sex with as many women as they would men. Not all, but a lot. In at least in my personal experience, I don't know if there are any stats on this. And one of the reasons for that, it's not because, and there's this misconception that a lot of bisexual women like they like women 30% and then they like men 70%, right? In my experience, it's sometimes the opposite. It's so much harder to meet other women, especially other women that are attracted to women, right? It's hard. Like, you have to understand that when you're bisexual, like, you are having men, just like any woman, you are having men throw themselves at you 24/7. And women just don't do that. Like, they just don't do that. I mean, if any of the women here want to throw themselves at me, by all means, um like like they just don't, they do not do that. It's just like not a thing. And so you just end up with like, low approaches from them, and you just end up dating more men. It's just like, it's
Yeah,
just by
and
consequence of that.
and
Maddie?
another thing sorry,
Maddie,
yeah,
please.
another thing I noticed too was that, like, when I would be dating a woman, especially if I was dating a woman who is a lesbian versus another bisexual woman, sometimes there was a certain amount of distrust. Or even when, like, you're not in like the dating stage, but you're kind of flirting and talking, and then you say, "Oh, I'm bi," it almost, I've noted in my own experience, like, puts them on the defense where they're like, "Oh, do you actually
pause
like
completely.
women?" And so, and it's just like, it's such a, but I also, I understand why there maybe would be, like, I don't know, maybe some distrust, or they think that, like, I don't know, I definitely, that's just something I've noticed when I was still dating, was as soon as you say you're bi, um like, immediately it's almost on the defense where they're like, well, now I don't know if you're serious or not, if that makes sense.
Pastel?
When I came in, like, a lot of times, like, I've only dated a woman for 3 months, was my longest relationship with a woman. Whoop-de-doo, right? But I always like to say, when I was out there, like, flirting with women and stuff like that, I would say, like, hey, I'm not really, I'm bisexual, but I don't know if I want to be serious right now. Like, just with any relationship, right? Like, you have to be fucking honest. And I think that I think that a lot of lesbians just would like to hear that, like just, or anyone would like to hear that. Anyone would like to hear that, right? Be honest with you, like, say like, hey, I'm looking for a serious relationship, or hey, I just want to fuck around. I think that we need to think about that, like the actual interpersonal relationships that go on, instead of like this broad society view.
Pastel?
So in all my like anecdotal dating experience, I found that the women I've dated, I can like actually sit down and have an immediate conversation, while all the men I've dated like need more time to like actually process things. Which kind of like, for like, I have really bad anxiety. So if I tell someone like something that's super important to me and they like just walk away for like 8 hours to process it, I'm freaking out for 8 hours, right? I'm like, oh my god, does this person hate me? Like, what do they think of me now? Um, for me, I just feel like, and again, in my anecdotal experience, for me, I feel much more like safer just talking to women that I've dated or that I have dated before, because like we can just sit down and have an actual like emotional conversation right then and there. I can get my points across, I can get like my issues across, and usually they'll respond immediately. There is no like this waiting period of freaking out. So I feel like that's why like cis women dating other cis women while being bi have like an easier time being out about it.
I thought that was an interesting point that Eris made about the availability of partners, right? And to find them. One, there are just less, like, for some lesbians, like, in the world, there's just less of them, right? But two, like, lesbians and bisexual women, like, have men approaching them all the time. So, like, for bisexual women, yeah, it's completely easier. There was this article that I had was reading about gay bars, and specifically in DC, but I think this is a trend all around, right? That like there was either only one lesbian bar left in DC, or
Yes,
like,
they're on a massive downturn.
yeah. So the point is, with the rise of apps, right? People feel less of a need to go there, right? To be in person. So just to walk up to a person and to flirt, like, without like some sort of digital some digital barrier in between you, right? It's very difficult. I've talked to a bunch of bisexual women, and they said like it's intimidating to approach another women. I know this very well. We have something in common there. But like, it can be quite intimidating to do that, right? And it's not something that they're very practiced at. When like being approached by a man is something they definitely know how to navigate, right? So yeah, I think it's just fascinating. Just like it's a matter of opportunity, and a matter of comfortability. Right? Like what's familiar. Well, it's familiar is to be with a man. Society shows you exactly how to do that. Right? Like as a child looking at media, it tells you exactly how to do that. What's expected of you. Right? But like what's expected of you within a gay relationship. Right? Like if I were to start dating a man. Right? What's expected of me? Like, what do I have a certain role or what? I don't know, right? So
I remember the first
please.
time I made a pass at a woman, and it totally was a cringe moment, and I felt like the world drop out from under me. I was like, "Oh, is this what men go through all the time? Because this is awful. This is totally terrible."
No fun.
But yeah,
So
I
I
have
get what
no
you're saying.
practice approaching, right? Because I never have to approach like men.
Mm.
So like I just end up being really badly skilled at that shit. Like I'm really good at receiving it, but not but not approaching. So like yeah. I'm sure it's the same for a lot of other bisexual women.
Yeah.
Nah, for me it's easy.
Mm.
It's easy.
I think
You're autistic and can't read emotions very well. Like every interaction becomes a lot easier.
That's a good point.
I think I've always tried to equal the weight, I guess, when approaching people. And I think it's a good practice. I try to like get younger girls than me, like also if they're interested in somebody, like, hey, like go ask him for his number, like stuff like that. And so I think like leveling the playing field, leveling the burden, uh, for like in general, even within like heteronormative relationships, will um, probably help people as well, in other relationships as we change what is expected and what's acceptable.
Mm.
Right, because if you approach or looked at as like thirsty or a pick me as a woman, where it's like it should
Yeah.
be just normalized. Like if you like a guy, go up and tell him you like him. That's
Yeah,
how I met
that's
my
what I
husband.
do.
He was wearing a Spider-Man t-shirt. I was like, I like Spider-Man. You want to make out? And 10 years
Yeah,
later,
and
here we are.
it's shifting
Yeah.
that direction. So
Me and my,
yeah, and
me and my fiance met playing on a kickball team together.
Oh, that's nice.
And I asked him
Yeah.
out. Thought he was cute.
Yeah, like normalize women being the approachers. Totally.
Yeah, I really do. I try to do that with girls I know who are younger than me, and just like, hey, you can do this. I mean, what's the worst that's going to happen? The worst that's going to happen is he's going to say no, and then you just walk away and you find somebody else. Like, so
exactly the shoot your shot kind of approach.
Yeah.
and if anything, he'll be complimented, and yeah.
So I really wish our friend Joe of the Solicitous was here, because she has a different opinion on this. I've actually talked to her specifically about this subject, right? And I'm gonna, if I try to relate to her thoughts, I'm gonna butcher it and she's gonna be super mad at me.
Don't do it. It's all good.
But she was, and it's been a while, but she was saying that women have more to lose, like when approaching a man than the other way around, in terms of like social standing, because like they can be like looked at as like as a slut somehow. I don't know how.
Yeah.
It doesn't
Yeah,
make
like
sense to
I
me,
bet
but-
you, yeah,
Yes,
like
it's
being
very
a pick
true.
me or
Very true.
thirsty. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like desperate,
Highly
you know.
Not even just
contextual.
that, right? Is that it's seen that like yeah, this is a whole other conversation, right? But in our culture it's like exemplified the idea of like of a woman that you need to present yourself as an object, right? And you need to make sure that you're a hard goal to score. And if you make it too easy, they won't respect you. And that's like that there's that dynamic, and that dynamic fucking exists in even like the most extreme leftist spaces. That's just the truth, right? It's like the whole hard to get thing. It sometimes often translates the other way too, but I don't think it's as common. So like yeah, so there is like if you approach someone, you immediately are giving up that facade. So you lose those toolkits. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So
I think-
go ahead, Ark.
I think it's this idea, like, and it's a bad idea. I think it's a gross idea, but it's this idea that it's like, if he doesn't come to me, And if I come to him or her, then I'm desperate. I want to be the shiniest piece of fruit in the basket that he picks. I don't want to be the apple going, pick me, you know?
Yeah, it's
Like,
internalized misogyny, 100%.
yes, internalized misogyny. That's the word I was
Yeah.
looking for. Thank you.
So when mm, I can't remember exactly how me and my ex-girlfriend got together. I can't actually remember who I'm pretty sure I asked her. I'm pretty sure. I'm almost certain. But I can't remember that specific moment. However, there was a moment in college. And it's gonna sound really bad when I tell you. There, there's this woman that I had been hanging out with. We had a dorm that had it was integrated, right? So like it was the same floor, but men and women, like men on one side and women on the other.
Yep.
And I was hanging out in her room. She liked the anime, so you know, of course, we were gonna have to be friends. So I was sitting there, and then all of a sudden, I didn't see this coming. She jumps at me, grabs me, tackles me to the floor. It's like starts kissing me. And like I didn't know what to do. I was uncomfortable. And I like struggle out. She was quite strong. I struggled out of her grasp. I was like laughing the whole time, but like how you like book it out of there. So that's like the closest I think to a girl asking me out. So I was.
It sounds like you just got sexually assaulted.
It sounds like that.
Yeah.
That's aggressive. I think that's usually not. That's
not
the
what you did with
case.
your husband.
That's
That's
not
not
what
what,
I would
that's not what
recommend.
happened?
We
Okay.
don't recommend
Like,
that, Chad.
Okay.
Don't do that.
I would not.
Unless you're
I
like
think-
playing rugby against each other, and like that, is what catalyzes the relationship. It's like you.
Yeah, and then
tackle
you end up
him,
making
your
out in the
eyes
locker
met,
room.
and then all of a
That-
sudden, but
That brings out
Yeah.
up an interesting question, though, right? Like, what is the right way, like, and B, what is the right place to hit on someone? Like, how are we supposed? Like,
We
we're not
actually-
getting matched up, and if you, especially like, if you're not someone that enjoys like the dynamics of like dating apps and stuff, there's an environment where like you can't meet people at work now, right? Because anyone who DMs you, that could be technically sexual harassment, and I mean a lot of men are rightly afraid of that shit. But what if if you meet someone on Discord, that person might say like, oh, I'm getting sexually harassed in my DMs, or some guy's creeps hitting on me. So like, what's the right way to even meet people now? It feels like predators have ruined all the spaces.
All of those things are fine if you're not a creep about it.
Right, because I
Yeah.
would say that like Prime's example, like that's totally a great place to be flirty and like in a guy's dorm room, kicking it, watching some One Piece, that's the absolute place to be flirty, but you don't have to like tackle him to the ground and
Yeah.
try to make out with him. Like you can there's flirt that can lead up to a makeout without having to physically assault him.
So we actually had this conversation last night on this channel, and it was very different panel makeup. It was all dudes, and I had to jump in because it was just it was something. That's what I'll leave it to.
Doing the Lord's
and
work.
yeah, well, and I always try to tell people whether it's men or it's women, right? Like the consequences for women when it comes to like a confrontation are like super severe, right? Compared to like the male perspective, right? It like if like I don't know, you can any I feel like you have to kind of approach it, whether you're a man or a woman, in a very like non-threatening way, right? And I always advise people, like, don't put a whole lot of sexual pressure on somebody immediately, right? Like you go up, and it can be something as simple as like, hey, do you want to get coffee later? Or like, hey, do you want to hang out sometime? I think you're pretty cool, you know. And so like from either side, I feel like that's pretty non-threatening. And you can always give them the option of having an out so they don't feel immediately pressured, you know, like, hey, do you want to hang out sometime? I think you're really cool. Obviously, you know, if you're too busy, that's totally fine. And you know, it's like super low pressure, but you're indicating your interest, right? I don't know that like one thing that came up last night was like finding people in the workplace, and I think that's very complicated because well, a huge thing was I asked them like, what do you consider as a signal from a woman, right? Because a lot of guys are saying, oh, I you know, if a woman's giving me a signal in the workplace, I should go, you know, do that. And one of the guys answered that like a signal was a girl just staring at you, which is like, I could be staring at the copy machine behind you, dude. Like that, like the you know, you have to be able to. Like signals can't be so vague, right? That like you have to be upfront, but you have to be like non-aggressive sexually. I feel like, you know, I feel like that's the key, but that's just my opinion. I don't know what you guys think. So
It's so tough because there's an anxiety of you don't want to lead someone on and you don't want to be led on. Um,
yeah,
uh, with um, with women in general, there's this added thing of like whether or not because um like female non not female non-sexual like relationships like platonic really friendships are very affectionate as well, so
yeah,
it's often hard to know like is it that dynamic or is it this dynamic, so that just also adds makes things a lot more confusing too.
yeah.
I think
I
we
agree.
should bring
Yeah.
the old matchmaker back, like, like classic style,
Like
from
Fiddler
like
on
the
the Roof?
Jewish shtetl. Yeah, just
Nah.
like that, right? And just start matchmaking. Makes it easier.
Yeah, so this thing about approaching, and I hear you, Stardust, about these signals. I don't know any fucking signals. I don't know anything. Don't ask me. I don't know what the signal. How do I know she's interested? I don't know. Let's guess. It's a dice roll for us all. So it's fascinating to hear that like women don't know like how to tell if another woman is interested. So like I feel less terrible about my entire life, knowing that's a
You
thing.
you should, Prime. I like the story I was telling you. I went up to a girl at a dance floor. I was like I said something so stupid. I was trying to make a pun. I was like, girl, you move like something, and she like looked at me, and she was with a friend. She was like, did you hear what this girl just said to me? And like walked away. And I was like,
Oh,
I'm going to go get another drink.
oh.
Chad, if you ever need advice asking someone out, let me know. I can help you, okay?
Dr. K, the Love Whisperer.
I definitely.
I am. I'm like a bird of paradise.
I mean, when you're already like a natural introvert and you like had to force yourself to go out anyway, and then you're like, oh, and now I have to like talk to people I don't know. Can I just like look at the bar and appear mysterious and like have them come to me? This would be so much easier. But no, it's totally a practiced skill. Like if we want to be real about it, like it's something where the first few times it happens, it's going to feel super awkward and weird. And you're going to be like, crap, I'm never going to get it. But like with anything else and just engaging with people, like the more you practice and like learn that, hey, when I'm rejected, turns out I'm okay still. And like I'm still alive and moving.
Exactly. Like
And
it turns out I didn't burst into flames.
Yeah, I tell that also to people, right? Like what's the worst that's going to happen? They say no, and you might feel bad the first few times that somebody says no to you, but you get up and you keep falling on your face until it doesn't hurt anymore, you know? So and eventually it'll work,
landing
right?
at some point. Yeah.
Stardust, you're clearly wrong. All of my ego and self-worth is going to be hanging on your answer. So if you don't tell me yes, I'm going to crumble. And I'll have to take it out on you as I walk away under my breath. So
Don't put that evil on Stardust. Don't put that evil on Stardust.
But Alice, I think you were going to say something?
Yeah, but then you memed.
Oh.
No, I'm just kidding. No, I was just gonna say, I think somebody brought this up already, but plus one to that fact of like women are really, really intimate with each other as friends. Like I'm primarily attracted to men, and yet like women are really, really intimate in friendships. It's a huge, huge difference because like sometimes I'm like, oh, I've got to send a boundary here because like I'm not interested in her that way, and then I'm like, oh, she's not interested in me that way either. This is just a friendship. It's definitely like an interesting difference.
I don't
Women
know.
are
I was
very
pretty
different.
Yeah, like
intimate with
Alice and
my
I are
dude friends.
always telling each other how gorgeous we are, and like,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's totally platonic. But like, yeah, I would never be saying that to a dude. So, there's just a totally different
Literally,
dynamic.
in like the waiting room of this chat, like everyone flooded in, and we were like, "Oh, I love your top. Oh, I love your hair. Oh, I love
Yeah.
your outfit."
Yeah.
Like that's what
Mhm.
happened.
Yeah. I would say I honestly I feel bad for men that they don't it's not as normalized for them to be this affectionate with each other because I can say I haven't needed a relationship like just because like my platonic friendships have been so fulfilling. They've like
They
filled
are fulfilling. Yeah.
every role. Yeah,
Mhm.
they've filled every hole that I've had in me, these platonic friendships. So it really is like just I think that the relationships that women have with each other, whether they're platonic or not, are really something magical, and I wish that more people got to experience that type of um wholeness and fulfillment. So
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Oh yeah, even here in the U.S. though, it seems to be on the change, right? Like it seems far more normal for intimate male relationships, um, even especially like gay dudes. Obviously, it's right from the get go. It's an intimate friendship, um, and I would say if you're looking at non American communities, that is also oftentimes the case. So I think this culture is gonna erode over time.
Hope so.
So shit, I was gonna say something really interesting too. It's gonna be fascinating.
Oh.
But no. Oh yeah, I remember. I think so for me, I'm actually with my friends. I'm actually quite affectionate to start us this point, right? Like in my platonic relationships, I try to do exactly that. Like I mean, we don't like. I guess calling each other like handsome. I don't know. We never really do that, but I don't really need that validation from other men, so it's like not a big deal. Um, but like in terms of like sharing emotions, I try to do that all the time with people. Let them. In general, I try to let everyone know how I feel about them. Let them know that they're appreciated. What they mean to me. Just like as a general rule, and I think it's a great way to like strengthen your friendships, right? So I really like the way that women like interact with each other. When I see them interacting that way, I think it's really great, and I wish more men did the same thing with each other. But it's. I think that's part of. Again, we were having this whole gender role conversation last night, and it was crazy. But like, I think that's part of like expanding on like male gender roles. It's like, yeah, you can be emotionally open with your friends, right? There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, you can
Right.
find so much fulfillment in male friendship. Yeah, we can find that emotional support that you may not be getting elsewhere from like if you're straight from your partner. That's the thing that happens.
But we tell men that when they compliment someone physically, that it's sexual harassment, right? So
I think it
I mean, I think
depends.
for a lot of guys, they're like they don't want to be
Uh,
doing something like that as well. So
Yeah.
do
So I
do
think it really depends on the way, and we talked about this last night as well. I think it really depends on the way that you do a compliment, right? If you go up to a woman and you say like, "Oh, that color looks really nice on you," or like, "Oh, you look really nice today," like I don't find that as sexual harassment, right? But if you go up and you start talking about like, "Oh, the shape of her body," or like the like you're that looks really sexy on you, then and there's no prior context, no prior like relationship, then yes, I would say that's sexually inappropriate at least,
Right. Like
I don't think yeah.
but there's some things that
There's
are
a
in the
huge
middle ground of
difference.
that.
Like,
Like
what would you
what?
say is the middle ground?
I don't know, like complimenting someone's lipstick, complimenting someone's hair. I think is
But
is a
the
is a middle ground that can totally have a very
I
like
don't think
sexual element to it
hair.
in certain
I th-
contexts.
I
No,
think you
that's
could
that's
I
not a
think
thing people are
lips
getting
is
upset
too
over.
specific. Yeah, I think
you could
lips
do
are too
that.
specific personally, but like I think hair is just
Even something
you know,
like saying sexy.
Also, I think
I'm
it's the
sorry?
way that you say it. Like I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, I think that if you say like, oh my god, that's an awesome lip color, I don't
Yeah.
care. Like I'll be like, yeah, dude, it is an awesome lip color. But if someone comes up
Yeah,
and says
don't
like,
say it's blowjob lips.
yeah, exactly,
Well,
like
that's the
Yeah.
yeah, someone says
sexualization.
I mean, not
you have
that
some
that would
major
matter to me.
DSLs, I'd be like, what the hell, man? You know, like,
It's
or even like,
Yeah.
sexualization.
yeah, exactly. It's the sexual, or someone came up
If
and said like, oh my god, your lips look
Okay,
plump
I'm
today.
oh
gonna
my
do an
god, those are
experiment, right? I am gonna
DSLs.
try the blowjob lips comment on some of my female friends, right? I'm just gonna see how that goes over.
There's
Wait,
a
we're gonna
word
take it.
for blowjob lips. It's called DSLs, dick
Yeah.
sucking lips. So I don't know what this whole blowjob lips thing is.
Yeah, it's
I
DSL.
thought
That's
that
not
was
a
a
thing.
camera.
Any lips
So-
can be DSL if you work
so-
if you believe in yourself.
Oh.
I was gonna say,
I
if we
like
say
that,
to Prime,
you know,
So you
if
going
we
to say
like,
something
hey
else?
Prime,
Yes, Alice?
Pride.
Alice?
some DSLs.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I work hard on that. Thank you. Yeah, very well practiced. But I think this is I think this is a really interesting conversation. So within my last position, well, not my last position, it was a while ago. But anyway, at one of my workplaces, right? I was there for a while, and I actually did compliment women, right? But like. It was very specific. It was very deliberate. I would like, for one, it was people I knew. It wouldn't be like random women, right? But like I would compliment them like on their clothes, right? And it was only two women who I knew very well. So I'm like, oh hey, that outfit looks great on you, or something. I don't know, something better than that. It was better than that. Trust me, it was much more clever. But that was always really well received. But even then, like especially it's a workplace environment, I was extremely careful as to how to do it, because easily it could go the other way. To Eris's point, so yeah, I don't know. I think more or less we should I don't in a business environment, it's just safer not to bother, honestly. But
I try to like tell people like when it's workplace, I feel like if you're gonna make those like comments, like you can always take somebody away from the workplace, and then like like hey, do you want to go for drinks? Hey, do you want to go for coffee? Right? It goes back to that kind of stuff. Where as long as you're not making these like inappropriate like like you look really nice, your lips look real flush today or something like that, which is like kind of like on the borderline like if somebody said that to me, I'd probably be a little bit like what but instead of saying
For
that in
many
the
reasons.
workplace, yeah, you could say that like outside, I guess, after you've taken this person out for drinks and like had a few, right? But like I feel like there's there are ways to like compliment people and talk to people that are appropriate, and also give the invitation to get out of this place where it'd be inappropriate to pursue something like that, right? You want to be like like setting appropriate. And I feel like it might sound like really kind of dated, but like like would you compliment like your sister like that, I guess, or like your grandma like that, so
That's a good question.
That's a really good way to tell if your compliment is
But I
like
don't get along with
cool.
my brothers. It's bad.
Like if you would say this to your sister, it's kosher. If you wouldn't say it to your sister, you probably shouldn't say it.
fair enough.
I'm gonna try.
Gotten-
that.
I've literally gotten a date by going up to some. I just told my chat this by going up to someone and be like, "Hey, this is gonna sound weird, but can I guess your name? Because I feel like you have a specific look, and I just want." And I would just like make it as a joke and playful. But then again, that's also my personality. But if you do it with confidence, like
yeah.
I don't know,
My
it
thing
works.
is always my thing is always like, hey, like we should hang out sometime, or like, hey, do you want to hang out? That it's like so simple. And then if they're is like potential for things to like get a little bit more like steamy, then you pursue that outside when you have taken that person out, right?
So we we'll wrap this up. I want to respect everyone's time. But to my audience members, we're gonna roll into our walk-on panel right after this. We're audience members like you, yes, you may participate. So chill. The stream is not ending. Oh God, the stream is not ending. There's no reason to leave. So just give us a moment. I'm gonna give all these wonderful people an outro, and then we'll jump right into it. Okay. First, Alice. After all, thank you for coming through. Really appreciate you stopping by. Once again, Alice, tell the world about yourself.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm Alice. I stream on Twitch once in a while. Basically, it's been every Tuesday because I've been on these panels, but I'm trying to stream more often. Calliopean Club, come join us. It is the best. Don't listen to everybody else who's saying other, Discord channels. Don't go there. Go here. And also, of course, keep hanging out with with Prime. Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm always glad to be here.
Okay. Next, we'll go with Dr. K. Dr. K, thanks for stopping by, especially such
short notice. Yeah,
such short notice. Yes, thank you. Please.
Yeah, it's all good. Tuesday is normally not a stream day for me at all, so it is what it is. Dr. K, I do D&D. I do the occasional political commentary. Do join my Discord. Unlike what these rapscallions are saying, you can in fact join multiple Discords. There is no scarcity on the Discord market. Worry not. If you think I have the vaguest hint of charisma, you'll love to see the fucking stories that I write up with my crew of wonderful, diverse people in a steampunk setting in D&D. Also check out IPA's stream because I'm there on Monday, and I guess I'm now obligated to rep the guy. And obviously, as everyone should, sub to Prime. Nah, that's me. That's me.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate it, friend. Next, let's go to Ark. Ark, thank you for stopping by, especially your first time being here. You just came on the open panel, and I thought you were great until I messaged you immediately, hey, we need to get you on here. So, Ark, thank you.
I hope I didn't disappoint. I'm a bit of a clown. But I enjoyed being on here. It was a really fun time. I really love places like this, like your Discord, this stream, Calliopean Club, and the place where I used to call home called Intellectualist. That's another Discord. We're promoting so many Discords today. But if you want to check that out, there's the Intellectualist Discord. Thanks. I'm going to shout out them for helping me learn some rhetoric. And I just want to say again, thanks for having me on. And yeah, sub to Prime. Especially if you have a free, Amazon Prime, subscription, Prime for Prime,
Thanks so much.
It's in the name.
Really appreciate it. But yeah, do you have some place they can follow you? Is it?
Sure. I actually am planning on starting streaming again soon. I will post a little message in chat so you can find my Twitch channel. I do mostly Hearthstone, and I'm planning on starting to stream Valheim. So if you guys are interested in that, and then maybe talk some politics while I do so.
All right. Thank you so much. Next, we have Maddie Cakes. Maddie Cakes, I'm really excited to have you around. I always love your energy that you bring to these. So thank you for keep coming back. Please tell me.
I will come back. I will come back as many times as you will have me. I love this panel so much. I think, I've done so many other like debate shows and other things. And what I love about Amazon Lily is that everyone is so respectful, and we have this incredibly meaningful dialogue. And I always walk away learning like 15 new things. So I thank you, first of all, to everyone for being here and for being vulnerable and open when talking about, issues that could otherwise be a little sensitive and are inherently personal. But yeah, I'm Maddie. I stream at least a few times a week, usually talking about politics and culture and news and stuff. I'm on twitch.tv/MaddieCakes_. I'm also on Twitter. I tweet a lot. So if you want just like a bunch of bullshit coming in quick succession, then go to my Twitter. That's what you're gonna get. And I also have a Discord. I haven't really started it as much, but it's mostly just pictures of people's pets right now. So I'll share the invite link should you decide that you want to see a bunch of pet pictures.
That
And
sounds like some
you're
lit
more than
content.
welcome.
Amazing. That's not a sell, all right? If that doesn't grab your attention, I don't know what does. But thanks so much, Maddie. Pastel, thank you for coming through. Pastel, I don't find you like wearing pastel. I feel like you should like that should be the only thing you wear. Like
It's kind of a pastel orange. It's kind of a pastel-y orange.
Is it? I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea.
Her outfit is beautiful.
No, it's great. No, it's great. Pastel?
So, or yeah, I'm at Pastel Dallas on Twitch. I mostly do like video games for my chat, even though I'm not really good at them. Politics, philosophy. I talk about the stuff I do in my district whenever like I have the opportunity to. I haven't done much recently, just due to COVID, and because my state sucks at distributing vaccines. It's literally like bottom 5, I think. My governor is just absolutely trash. Do not like him. Anyways, you can come join my Discord. It's in my chat. I can like link it to you guys in Prime's chat if Prime will let me.
Please.
And yeah, I love this panel. It's like so great. We can actually like come on here and just actually have like conversations about things. Far better than like most other places where you just get people yelling at each other and like no conclusions are ever drawn. Or it's like, or like, you know what the absolute worst? I want to vent for a second. The absolute worst thing I've ever seen, and it annoys me to death, are when two people are having a discussion and they're arguing two completely different axioms. So they're like moral like structures are just completely different, and you never see any agreement because they just cannot like come to find a middle ground or understand that they're just arguing like from completely different systems. And it's just so annoying to watch two people yell for 2 hours about that constantly. And it's like this entire conversation isn't productive, and it would just be better if they talked about the policy rather behind just the rather like really dumb like moral parts, because they're not capable of having that discussion. Which is like, I'm gonna say it, that's probably like 60% of people that talk about politics online. Okay, I'm calling people out. Other than that, Dr. K, I have a question. What's your favorite D&D class?
She's deafened.
Oh darn! I have to ask her later.
I play D&D. I prefer right now I'm a rogue arcane trickster, which I appreciate because I still get to do magic, but then I can like, you know,
do sneaky stuff. Yeah.
I
love playing bard because support casters are the best.
I played
Bards
a
are
bard
fun.
once where I didn't sing songs, I told jokes. So
that's great.
Wow.
I was like a stand-up comedian bard. Yeah.
Also, hold on.
Performance check.
To anyone in chat that plays like Goliath fighters or anything, you're all basic, okay? Play like more intricate characters.
Thanks so much, Pastel. Really appreciate it. Next, Terra Supernova. Thank you for coming through once again. Nice to see you after all this time. So tell a little about yourself.
Well, thanks for having me back. I'm Terra Supernova with an underscore on Twitch. I stream Monday, Thursday, and Friday. I usually cover politics and politics adjacent topics. Thursdays, I usually do panels, same like Prime, a lot more conversation like we have here on the Amazon Lily, not quite the blood sports that you would see in Prime's other panels. And yeah, if that's something that you're interested in, come on by, drop a follow. And also, again, thanks Prime for having me on here. Guys, you should be subbing for Prime. He's one of the few streamers actually doing praxis and lifting up women's voices on this fucking platform. So if you're not subbed, I don't know what you're doing. Thanks.
Thanks so much for the very, very kind words. And then finally, Stardust.
Oh, yes. I'm Stardust. STR. DST. I do political commentary, kind of a debate bro, I guess. And you know, just messed up conversations too. I really like messed up conversations. I stream almost every night. Still kind of like working out like what days are going to be my off days, but I'm on YouTube and on Twitch, whichever platform you prefer. And sub to Prime. Use your Prime for Prime.
Thanks so much.
Prime for Prime.
Finally, we have to. I have to give credit to my wonderful co-host, produce all this. Good friend Eris, who's been so kind. I have to let her know how much I appreciate her every single time, because she's doing so much for me. We have Eris. I'll let her show for herself, but then I'll probably like double down on whatever she says because I feel like you guys need to follow up and be following her. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Prime. So I'm Eris. I love history and I also love playing strategy games. Right now, I'm playing Rust, and it's bringing out the worst in my personality, as it can be confirmed by a lot of people. If you want to see that, you should follow me on Twitch, which is Eris on Discord. And you should also follow me on Twitter, where I'm trying to learn how to tweet, which is CC_Eris. I love arguing for weird ideas that challenge all my preconceptions and learning about new ideas. I recently got beautifully, hopefully I'm allowed to say this, beautifully gangbanged yesterday over constitutional monarchism.
I saw that beautiful gangbang.
And I have to say I enjoyed every minute of it, and I had a blast, and I love debating. So I like, having more chill discussions like this, but I also sometimes like a little bit of blood sports. So yeah, so if you enjoy this, you should follow me. I also play guitar, and right now am obsessed with decorating my planner with stickers because I'm 5 years old. And if you want to talk to me or get to know or hear some of my ideas, you should follow me on Twitch or join Calliopean Club, which is also in the chat. So yeah, Prime, thanks so much for having me.
I'm proud to say that Eris was gangbanged here on this channel just yesterday. This is something we provide on this platform to all who would want consensual gangbanging. Eris, thanks so much for being so kind.
Honestly, I think you should upload that VOD to Pornhub. It was a...
I just have never heard someone say beautifully gangbanged as if it were like this.
Wanted to add a touch of romanticism to it.
It was very purple prose there, some purple prose.
I'm clipping this and sending it to Skipples. Just saying.
So please clip this out of context. I would love it. But once again, please, yes, go follow Eris. She's a wonderful human being, and of course she runs a Calliopean Club. Exploit Eris beat me to it. Great. To find the link right there, that's her Discord server. Check it out. It's a really cool place to be. Really great discussions you'll have there. So please hit her up on all her socials and experience the magic. But you only got a taste just then, right? I'm sure there's more of that if you actually go and follow her. So yeah, Eris does a lot for our channel, so let's show her appreciation. All right, so that's it for that. We are going to roll on to our walk-on panel. Anyone here is welcome to join us, but if not, thank you for spending your time, your energy, your passion, your knowledge with my community. I know they appreciate just as much as I do. Have a good one, everyone.